Ask America.
Welcome to Aaron Ask America, where I ask America the questions. Today we have Chandler on the podcast. He is a friend of my son's who's going to be on the podcast at some point, but I am excited that a young man of his age saw what we're doing here and was like, I want to be on this podcast. So, Chandler, thank you for
Thanks for
asking
having
to
me.
be on the podcast.
Yeah, I bugged you on one of your episodes. I just put a comment and I said, "Can't wait to be on."
Yeah.
Didn't even ask.
Well, see, the thing is you said that, right? And because we're so new, I
Yeah.
think the highest view that we have is like 77.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
when you posted that, like, I know your name,
Right.
but I didn't associate the name to you. And Brett was like, "Hey, did you see that Chandler asked to be?" And like, I looked in my phone. I was like looking through the text. I was like, I don't know if Chandler has my number. And I went
Yeah.
through Discord looking for Discord messages, and I was
Right.
like, no, he didn't. He's like, no, he made a post on on one thing. So I went in there. I was like, oh, that was him. So
Yeah, that's real funny. That's good.
So-
I'm glad.
so what possessed you to want to come on to this crazy podcast I'm starting?
So I liked the format. It was one of the few, because I had watched your stream a little bit.
Fire
I know me and Brett got on for like a couple minutes one time when you were at the church doing it. It was
Yeah.
way back. It was like probably like 2019 almost.
Yeah, when
wanna
we were
say.
doing it at Trinity.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I thought the format was, it would be, I'm not a big Twitch guy, mostly because I think a lot of the Twitch people are, not you, but a lot of people on Twitch are a little weird.
Yeah.
And back in my head, I was like, man, it'd be cool just to see a podcast with you and Fred. And I was like, that'd be sick. That'd be like a cool deal. And also the time you could spend, like, I think you said that previous, can we say that? The coming episode with
Yeah.
Fred on it.
Yeah.
It's pretty long. That's like long format. You could chop that up, Patreon half of it maybe, stuff like that. That'd be cool. That'd be a good moneymaker too.
You know, like I told you, the podcast that Fred and I did was 3 hours long. We're
Yeah.
trying to figure out the best way to cut it up. Plus, Fred is worried about a couple of things that he said, so we're going
Yeah.
to make sure that he's comfortable. Just like with this podcast,
Right,
like
yeah.
like I told you before we started, if you say something that you're like, I probably shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Great thing about it is this is not live.
Right,
It's
right.
recorded. I can go in there and remove stuff.
Yeah.
So.
I don't want to get anyone in trouble.
Well, like I have a buddy coming up, like he's an atheist, right?
Okay.
And we're going to stay away from religion and politics because he's also
Yeah.
we were just totally opposed to each other, right? When it comes to that, but like he's got a dirty mouth, so like
Yeah.
I figured that we're going to do some bleeping possibly.
Yeah.
But ultimately, at the end of the day, like I don't know if you've seen where I've actually described what I want this podcast to become.
Right, yeah.
Is I want this to be like when you think of like Joe Rogan, right? You think of him like interviewing celebrities. Like I want to interview like the middle class person, like
Right.
like with Fred. You know, I told
Yeah.
you his story spans from like 71
Yeah.
through
Today.
today. So how did he get from where he grew up to Texas right now? And his story, because of all the drugs and everything, and that went on in his life. It's a 3-hour podcast,
Yeah,
right?
that's a lot.
So so it's a lot to cover, and we didn't even cover everything because there's some stuff that's in there, and that's why, like with you, like I don't care what the age is, right?
Right.
Because you yourself have been through stuff. Like there's
Yeah.
stuff that I have no idea that what you went through. I don't know your like I know your upbringing to a degree, but like I don't know like the stuff you did. We're going to explore
Yeah.
as we talk. But you know, I'm assuming that you're into the same things growing up that Brett was.
Pretty much. That's how we met. Because I met him on the youth retreat at Trinity. And he was like the funniest kid there, in a way. I'm not kidding.
What
Yeah. Your son is funny.
is he?
Mad funny.
Okay.
And he doesn't give up, which is wild.
Yeah.
I'm not that way. I think I was a funny kid, but I wasn't that way. But he never like relented, and I was like, this kid is crazy. We got to hang out more.
And he's
And
still
then-
that way now.
Yeah, and then we went to go. I think the first real hangout we did, and this is when I was like, I'm gonna be with this guy forever. Not in a no.
Totally heterosexual.
In a heterosexual way, totally normal.
Hetero life mates.
Yeah. So the first time we hung out, my parents, because none of us drove, and we went to the AMC and we watched freaking Zootopia came out, and we were just like, it's something to go watch. Let's go watch
Yeah.
it. And I remember at the end of the film, like there's like this build up of like a romantic interest between the two main characters or whatever, and there's just a bunch of like families in the deal. And I remember Brett at the end, the main character like says like, "Oh, I love you" or something, and like Brett stands up in the middle of the theater and says, "She said it. We can all go home." At the end of the deal. And it
What?
was so funny.
Wow.
It killed me, and it was the funniest thing. I was just like, I gotta know what he's all about. So
Nice.
from then on, that was it. It was me. And after that, it was like I was the first one to get licensed. We were driving him around between my truck breaking down in the middle of that. And all this other, there's a bunch of craziness. Yeah.
So before we get all into that portion, um, so like let's explore the whole like okay, you see the Batman, right?
Yeah.
So that's been my deal for a
Right.
really long time through several connections and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I grew up. So I think that the era of Saturday morning cartoons was over by the time that you
Pretty
and Brett
much.
came up. So like what were some of the things that you like okay when you look back at your childhood like when you were either going to school and coming home was there like a cartoon that you were just like
Yeah.
I can't wait to watch this cartoon.
Yeah. For me, it was for a while. It was Generator Rex. So
Okay.
yeah, the same people who did Ben 10, and we didn't have cable at
Didn't
my
either
house.
way, yeah.
We didn't have that, and so my grandma did, and she lived like catty corner to the middle school I went to. So on Fridays, we would be over at her place through like Friday, Saturday, and then like Sunday we'd go to church.
Mm.
I think, and I would catch all the new shows on Cartoon Network because at nighttime at around like 5 to 9, and then I would just binge everything.
Yeah,
Generator X.
you were binging things before it was cool,
I was
before streaming
before
services
streaming
there you were
services.
generator
Yeah,
rexing
and
it.
then I know I was always into like Star Wars, Clone Wars, but that started ending around that time. So, and I think Generator X was around a little longer. But then I really got into like the comedy aspect of cartoons.
Hmm.
I always thought that was really good. I was into like, have you heard of there was like a Mad? It was called Mad TV, but it wasn't the channel. It was a show.
Yeah, I grew up watching Mad. Well,
Yeah,
when I say grew up, I mean I watched Mad
yeah.
TV.
They
Yeah.
they did it like a PG-13 version of like a seasonal show called Mad TV for a little bit,
Hmm.
and it was on Cartoon Network on Friday, and I thought it was the funniest thing.
Wait a minute. So,
It didn't last long. It was very short.
So Mad TV was the Mad TV that I'm thinking of was a sketch comedy show
Yeah.
that played the same time that Saturday Night Live
Right.
did.
Yeah.
So
So this is different.
Okay, so this is
Yeah.
different. I wasn't aware of this other
So
Mad
this
TV.
was they tried to revive like Mad, like the magazine.
Yeah.
So they took that and made a little seasonal show. It's kind of like it was like a kid's Robot Chicken.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that was so funny to me, and because my dad and everything, I've always been more interested. As I grew up, I was more interested in like story stuff, like epics and all that. But as I grew up and like things get harder, you get a lot funnier.
Yeah.
And so I was always on my dad's side of like, what's the funniest thing? And I was always into like more comedy stuff going through like middle school.
Yeah.
That was more my interest. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad grew me up watching Mel Brooks movies. If you've seen any of those, like Blazing
Yeah.
Saddles and
Yeah.
stuff like
Blazing
that.
Saddles is
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Yeah. My dad was the same way.
Real quick,
Oh
funny
yeah.
story. Real
Hmm.
quick, then I will get back to you. So,
Yeah.
I thought Dexter was ready for Blazing Saddles. So, like, I don't know, this was like 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I turned it on, and like, the opening sequence of them working on the railroad, and then like the main character falls into a sand pit.
Yeah.
And then the first thing out of dude's mouth is the N bomb. He loses his mind, and I was like, "Yep, not ready for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not ready for this."
Yeah.
Boom. Let's pull that back because
No, I
you
love
know.
Blazing Saddles,
But
man.
Blazing Saddles is a movie that could never, ever, ever be done
Yeah.
again. It
Yeah.
was it's a product of its time, and the humor back then is totally different now.
Yeah.
For example, have you ever seen the movie Dumb and Dumber?
Yeah.
Have you seen Dumb and Dumber 2?
Yes.
So the comedy style is completely
Completely
different.
different.
So like I didn't enjoy Dumb and Dumber
I
2
didn't
at
either.
all. Or
Yeah.
no, it was Dumb and Dumber I think is what it was.
Yeah.
The direct sequel, not the prequel, the direct sequel to the first Dumb and Dumber. That
Yeah.
comedy style was totally
It
different.
was different. Yeah.
But back to what so you watch Generator Rex, right? So like when you're talking about other things like did you like Ben 10? Was that something or
I never liked the. Brett's gonna hate me for this,
Eh.
but
you're allowed to have your own opinion.
I know. I'm just like because I know he's gonna watch it.
Yeah.
But I cannot stand Ben 10.
Oh, dang. Hot take,
So
right?
the reason is because it's I felt like even for when I was a kid I was like this is too kid-ish,
Yeah.
I guess. In Generator X it's very like the first episode like people die.
Yeah.
Like it's like it was different. It was more gritty. I mean I also grew up with like Transformers like uh let's say maybe DARPA propaganda films, kind of, where it was like military bust into a house,
G.I.
that kind
Joe.
of thing. GI Joe. Have you ever watched the GI Joe 1980s movie?
Oh, I love that movie. It's
So
awful.
funny. It's awful.
But when I say awful, I mean like so. Remember that was my era.
Yeah.
So you have Transformers movie come out where
Oh, yeah.
Optimus Prime and all my favorite robots get
Wheel,
destroyed.
Wheeljack dies off
Yeah,
camera.
yeah.
He's a corpse.
Yeah, and then you have I don't know which one came out first. I'm just saying because the Transformer movie is the one that traumatized
Yeah.
us the most,
Right.
Because of what happened to Optimus, right? And then you have this GI Joe movie
Yeah.
where Duke, the guy who's been leading GI Joe the entire
He
time,
gets speared with a serpent.
serpent to the heart.
To the heart.
Serpent to the heart.
Yeah.
And I found out later on, and maybe you know this, but like he actually, in the original cut of the movie, he died.
Yes.
So at the very end, when they defeat
He woke up.
Cobra,
Yeah.
but when they say he woke up,
Yeah.
and everybody's still doing this, like they're crying, they're sad because the original cut of the movie was like
Yeah.
dude died.
Yeah.
And I was like, that blew my mind. I
That
was
was
like,
crazy.
but,
Such a
you know,
weird turn.
but that was everything was about technically still is about selling toys.
Oh, yeah.
So the Transformer movie was getting rid of all the old Transformers so that way they could
Yeah.
start selling Galvatron and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
Same thing with GI Joe.
Rebranding Bumblebee as Golden Bug.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, what it boils down to is they found out their mistake, and I
Yeah.
think the first season or the second season after the Transformers movie, what did they do?
Bring
They
him back.
resurrected Optimus Prime because Optimus Prime, till this day, is still one of the most iconic
Yeah.
top superheroes of all time.
Right.
Is Optimus Prime? I mean, I remember seeing, and again, like I don't know how much connection you have to it, but like that scene where he's looking over the battlefield
Yeah.
at the beginning of the movie, and it starts playing that song.
Yes,
you got the touch,
yeah,
and
yeah.
he just starts running over all those Decepticons, and
Yeah.
then he just launches in the air, just
Guns
like,
down.
bap, bap, bap.
Yeah.
It flips around, annihilates, and the thing is like, again, like you grew up with this stuff. Ready to watch. So I watch
Yeah.
week to week with these guys shooting at each other. Sure, they got hit ever so
Yeah.
often, but it didn't
Yeah.
leave a
You walk it
hole
off.
in
Yeah.
their chest.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
when the opening of the movie happens and Megatron and them open up that ship and they just start they kill Ironhide, Jazz,
Yeah.
like all those people. I was like, what is going on? It was wild.
Yeah. What I thought was funny too, because I always liked because they tried to redo. They did a show on whatever. I don't know. It was like wherever they had like My Little Pony. It was like that channel did a redo of like GI Joe, and it was like a grittier, like spy espionage, like an origins for the GI Joe or whatever. I thought that was okay. But what I thought was funny was that when GI Joe was a comic, the guy who was writing the comic had like a lot of death in it.
Oh,
And
was there?
Yeah, and they were like, "You can't do that. We want you to write for the show, but you can't have people die." And he's like,
Yeah.
"I'm not going to do that. That's not."
Yeah, every time somebody would
'Cause,
shoot
yeah.
at each other, they would move
Yeah.
out of the way,
Move out of the way.
or the thing would blow up, and they were jumping
Yeah.
out of the ship before they died.
Yeah, or like it nicks their clothes. That was a
Yeah.
thing too. Like you get a little tear in your clothes. But yeah, that was really I always thought that was interesting, but I was always looking for the more grittier realism thing, and that's what got me into like things like history and
Yeah.
stuff like that. Was that kind of stuff. But Generator X was big for me. That was like a sci-fi. It was very claustrophobic because in that show they have the Evos and like everyone is infected. No, there's no escape, and anyone at any time, for whatever reason, can become this mutated demon that will destroy a city and like hurt people. And that was an interesting world to me. I liked that. But I mean, once those shows went away, though, like there's no real action adventure shows anymore,
Yeah.
and that was really disappointing. But so I kind of moved into comedy. Things like Gumball and stuff like that are still funny to me. Like I'll catch a clip every once in a while, and I'm like, that was really funny. Like just the way they set things up and everything is like it's almost kind of perfect in some ways. But of course, they don't touch certain things, but yeah, it was great. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, it's been on the on and up, I guess. So
So so when you look back, so my thing that I look back the most on, like you have Batman, but the biggest thing for me is He-Man.
He
Like
Man, I
He-Man
loved
was
He
a
Man.
big deal for me growing up, but they revived him back and they call it like He-Man 2000,
Yeah,
right? They revived it, which I
yeah,
really enjoyed.
I enjoyed it too.
And then Kevin Smith revived it again
Hmm.
and not didn't do such a good job. And
Yeah.
now there's this movie coming out that like has He-Man back here on planet Earth instead of
Hmm.
Eternia. I'm like, what are they doing?
Yeah,
What are they
I don't
doing?
know.
But so you look back, and so Generator Rex is the definitive cartoon that you're like, I'm
Yeah,
going to
that
show
was
my kids growing
yeah,
up.
that will show them that thing. It's a good balance between intensity and like cartoon stuff.
Yeah,
You know, it's like a good balance. I think. I mean, speaking of Batman, I think it strikes the similar balance that the old Batman cartoon had, like in the '90s
yeah,
or
Batman the
whatever.
animated
Yeah,
series. Yeah,
Yeah, that was like a good balance where it wasn't too insane, but it was still like you still felt like this was a kid show. You know.
yeah. It was a kid show, but it
Yeah.
also told moral tales
Yeah.
hidden behind a cape and
Right.
cowl.
Okay. Yeah.
But so as far as outside of like the cartoon, like so I mentioned before with a podcast with Evan, like I did a lot of street hockey,
Yeah.
like outside of video games and TV shows, like
Hmm.
we were out there, and I know that you grew up in a totally different era, so
Hmm.
like street hockey wasn't a thing for you, or even I don't even think it was a thing for your generation at all.
Yeah.
Like I couldn't tell you the last time I've seen a kid out there on rollerblades outside
No.
of
Yeah.
people working at Sonic,
Right. Yeah.
with the skates and everything. But
Hmm.
like outside of TV and everything like that, what was something that y'all
I
did?
so I was like kind of at this time. Everybody had Xbox and all sort of
Mhm.
stuff. I'm not saying like my parents were like anti that, but they were like, we don't have the money for that.
Yeah,
So I had like a DS and like a Game Boy Advance and stuff like that, and I loved all that stuff. But there was always a part of me that wanted to have a more tactile grasp on the world,
Mhm.
and so I always liked building things. Like my dad spent about 6 years. We had a loft. We still do have a loft, and that was going to be like our room for like four kids. So
yeah,
like living in a submarine basically. It was just really cramped. But I mean, he spent years doing that, and I helped him build that over time. I mean, I would crawl through insulation, run wire at like
yeah.
10 years old and stuff. But um, I was the creek kid. I was always walking around the neighborhood riding a bike, pretty much by myself though, for the
Yeah.
most part. And I was always just exploring areas and stuff like that. That
So
was my thing.
that was kind of like what my friends and I
Hmm.
did is that we were probably the last, even though you see kids riding bikes and Dexter
Hmm.
rides bikes and all that sort of stuff, but like just the era of kids where we were like,
Yeah.
have you seen Stranger Things?
Yeah.
Where like all the kids are running around on the bikes. That's kind of
Hmm.
like what we did.
Yeah.
So and we just went around exploring like over
Hmm.
where I grew up. There was like this drain
Hmm.
thing. It was like this huge
I
pipe,
love that. Yeah.
huge pipe.
Yeah.
Do you think I went in there? No, but it was still wild to go
Yeah.
that was right around the corner. But like, so you said you explored like a creek.
Yeah. We have a ton of creeks. It's right by the lake
Hmm.
where I live, and we'd go down by the lake and stuff. But I was always more interested in finding like the most aesthetically pleasing area. Like that
Hmm.
was like my thing. Like what is the coolest looking area? And there was this part where an old concrete dump bridge was that they made to connect two neighborhoods back in forever ago. and been around there since my dad was a kid. And he was born like the '60s. So like that area was like the coolest look because it was this old limestone that had been eroded away. There's fossils in it throughout the whole deal, and there's water running over it, and it goes in this big creek that feeds into the lake. So you can. It was just cool, and it had, like you said, those big drainage
Yeah.
deals. I would go in there, you'd walk through it, and trudge through it. Yeah, it's
You
cool.
you were you were definitely like
Yeah.
way
Hmm.
braver than I was because
Yeah.
there's no way I was going in there just
Yeah.
because I grew up they just remade it, right? But
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
I was in the era where that stuff was real.
Yeah.
So you go down that pipe, there's
Hmm.
a clown waiting to
There's
get
a
you.
clown waiting, yeah, or yeah, someone pretending to be one,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
might be worse. But no, I always loved that. I mean, there was these drainage pipes that are by a Shell station going onto the highway, and they stretch for I want to say a quarter of a mile, so it's just darkness.
And you would just walk through those.
Yeah,
Wow.
I'd go as far as I could before I was like I should probably
Yeah.
turn back
Yeah.
around. I don't know where this leads, so I don't know where I'm gonna be, but yeah, I would go through those and stuff like that. Yeah, it was really fun. That
So
was
you
fun.
so you had mentioned like the
Hmm.
house that you grew up in,
Hmm.
right? So my when you asked to come on here, I've been pondering about the little bit that I've known
Hmm.
you, right? So our interactions have been very few and far between
Yeah.
throughout Brett's life since he met you. But I've always generally liked you. But like
Well,
you
that's
said,
good. I'm
yeah, yeah.
glad.
Well, I mean,
I
we,
know.
we've
Yeah.
we've we've all joked around. Like I
Yeah.
think the last long interaction we had was when me, and Brett cleared that dirt pile or something for my parents.
Oh
Right, we
yeah.
spent an entire almost
Yeah.
day just doing that, just
Moving. Yeah.
goofing off
Hmm.
and having. At least I thought we had fun, but
Oh, it was fun. I
yeah.
enjoy. I love manual labor.
But so when one of the first times I met you is Brett had spent the night at your house,
Hmm.
and then I think either my parents dropped him off or he came home from Trinity, and then
Hmm.
I picked him up in the morning. So like I didn't really know your family the
Yeah.
way that my parents did, right?
Hmm.
And then so when I walked into the house, I didn't know you had that many brothers and
Oh
sisters.
yeah.
And then so like describe for the people
Hmm.
like without giving
Too
anything
much.
away
Yeah.
to like the house that you grew up in, the amount of rooms and how
Oh
many
yeah.
brothers and sisters you have.
So
Well, no names. Yeah.
yeah, like obviously. So
Yeah.
it's about 700 square feet, and at the time we had 6 people living in 700 square feet, and it was when I was growing up, for most part, up until I was 12, it was just living room, kitchen, one bathroom, and a bedroom.
Yeah.
That was it. That was it. So we were sleeping out of the living room for forever.
Until you and your dad finished that loft up
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because whenever I met you, the loft was already complete. I believe. I
Yeah.
believe you were sleeping up there with your
Right.
brothers and your sisters or
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Like, because are you the oldest?
Hmm.
Okay, so like when you hit your teenage years,
Hmm.
like how do you stretch your legs and start finding out in such a environment?
You'd start finding excuses to go out. So Matthew was another friend from Trinity, and he started driving pretty early, and I hung out with him a ton.
Okay.
Like I was homeschooling throughout high school, so I had a lot of like time on my hands, and we did stupid stuff. Like we would just drive around, watch videos in his car, go out, find something to do. We were helping on his land. His family had a little land kind of
Hmm.
out in the boonies, and we did projects. We built like PVC bows. You ever heard of that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, like we did that. We attempted to forge some knives from railroad spikes that we had taken off the side of a railroad, and we did it late at night. It was like 2 in the morning, and I was like 17, he was 19, and we were like grabbing up all this scrap steel. We were gonna make an anvil with this plate that we found. I remember a sheriff had pulled up and watched us do it the whole time and never bothered us.
Really? He's
Yeah,
like, yeah,
yeah,
kids will be kids.
yeah.
They could be out there doing drugs,
Yeah,
but they're just
yeah, they're okay. And yeah, yeah, stuff like that. A lot of driving around, a lot of avoiding
the
school
house.
too,
Yeah,
and the
yeah.
house was a big part of it, and building stuff too was another thing. So that was also a big part. So like he had the ride, so he was always like driving by my place and was like, I mean, sometimes in the morning, he'd be like, "Do you want to just not do anything today?" And I'd be like, "Yeah, of course. Go find trouble."
Because when you hear stories like with the way that you grew up,
Hmm.
like those aren't as prevalent as they used to be. So
Yeah.
like I grew up in a house where my parents did the
Hmm.
they tried to keep us in our own rooms. Like there was a
Right.
couple
Yeah.
of times where my brother and I had to share a room.
Hmm.
But like the reason I bring that up is my mom grew up
Hmm.
in a two-bedroom house
Yeah.
with like it was I think she's got eight brothers and sisters, so there's
Golly.
like nine kids,
Yeah.
something like that. And back then, like I don't know if you've ran into any older people,
Hmm.
but back in the day they would have a house,
Hmm.
but there's a room that nobody could go into.
Kinda.
Okay, so if you've
Yeah.
ever run into them, you go to my grandma's. Well, not
Hmm.
anymore, but like my grandma had this room that
Yeah.
nobody was allowed in. So you have this two-bedroom house,
Yeah.
the master where grandma and grandpa slept. You had
Hmm.
the one room, then you had like the kitchen,
Hmm.
the dining, and then there was this. They ended up adding on to it, I believe.
Yeah.
And there's this huge room that should have been the living room that
Right.
nobody was allowed to go into. I think my entire life going that I met since my entire life until my grandma passed, I
Yeah.
think I was only in that room maybe 7 times, 8 times,
Wow.
just
Wow.
because couldn't go
Yeah.
in
I
there.
couldn't go in there.
So I'll circle back to you, of course,
Yeah.
is like you or just like your story
Hmm.
gives you a unique perspective on
It's a little different.
yeah. So
It's a little different.
when you're able to, because are you still living there?
Yeah. Yeah.
So once you find your own space,
Hmm.
right? Like the spoiled kids
Hmm.
of these, they're used to having their own space. Like
Yeah.
you're going to appreciate once
Hmm.
you jump out and spread your
Yeah.
wings and fly. You'll be like,
Yeah.
oh
Yeah.
yes, this is what it's like to have my own
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. The funny thing too is like I feel like if you're in a cramped space, it keeps everybody pretty honest for
It
the most
does.
part. Like you don't really like sometimes I hear stories of like some of the stuff that people had to deal with. I'm like, that would never happen,
Yeah.
and not my house. It would never happen.
There's no place.
There's no place to go. There's no secrets. Everyone's yeah. There's nothing to keep hidden. I mean, you can't. Yeah. I mean, you got to stay. You don't want to spread an infection.
Right. You can't
Yeah.
shut the door.
Yeah. You can't.
You
Shut
can't
the
shut out
door.
the rest of the
There's no
family.
curtain.
You just
Nothing.
you just run over there. I'm going to my room.
Yeah.
Get out of the way, Jonathan, Katie, Bobby.
Yeah. That's about it. Yeah.
So in the loft,
Mhm.
right? Okay, see, I remember and just again, this was a
Mhm.
long time ago.
Yeah.
Like there was like this ladder that
Mhm.
you walked up there. So you go in there. Is there enough room for you to stand up? So you have to crawl to where, or do you lean
You
over?
have to lean over.
Okay, and you
Yeah.
being the oldest, are you closer to the ladder or are you further away?
I was closest to the ladder. I
Okay.
had the biggest area,
Okay.
and I had a lot of stuff at the time. We've gotten rid of a lot of it now, but yeah. I mean, I had like I tried to personalize it best I could. I mean, I had a bunch of I had a few posters and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, a bunch of stuff from childhood that I just had sitting around. But I mean, I had books and things like that. We had like a little built-in bookshelf.
Mhm.
That was the coolest part of the room was that built-in bookshelf. That was so cool.
And I forget the number. How many brothers and sisters?
So I'm one of four, and then I have two older half brothers,
Okay.
and but they were off doing their own thing, like military and all that.
Yeah, the reason why I was asking because so when you have the loft, right? And
Hmm.
I know you didn't have it the entire time. The first sibling comes along,
Hmm.
you're like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
The
that's
second
whatever.
sibling comes along, you're like, okay. Do you ever
Hmm.
just say, hey, mom, dad,
Cool it.
can you stop?
You know what's funny? That never bothered me. I'm a big proponent now of big families. I think the way the world's going, there's a like traditionally it was always kind of understood, even in America, that like change is fostered through like how big your family's gonna be, how many
Yeah.
kids can you have, and that was like the idea because if you have a bunch of preset people that are already aligned and they are more inclined to like be Christian or be like conservative or whatever, that is going to like maintain course for your nation better than voting will ever be.
Yeah.
So a lot of the reason I mean, I do a lot of like history studies and stuff like that. I do believe that, so like the 60s and stuff, there's a lot of chaos in America around that time. You had like the Weather Underground, like terrorist groups, that, like stuff we wouldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
Like we have like what we have like Antifa, I guess is that's our thing.
I
I
mean,
don't.
there's all kinds of
We have like a
yeah.
few groups, but they don't really do much. Like it's not to the extent that like, I mean, back in the day you had like the Weather Underground, you had the Black Panthers, you had like Process Church, like all these weird groups, tons of them. They were all active,
Yeah.
very active people, and we are blessed that think in a way providentially that people aren't like that anymore because they did a lot of bad stuff. Um, but what's also interesting to me in the '60s that's when birth control became very heavily saturated. It
Yeah.
was like '68, I think, was when the pill came out, and it was like immediately after that, like we're kind of stagnated in like the political talking points of the '60s. Nothing's changed,
Yeah.
and the reason
Population is gone.
population is dropping.
Yeah.
So I think that is if you want to, if there's like a branching point for how things have gotten crazy, I think that would be the origin. Would be
So,
that.
well, so if you take a couple of years back,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I think the origin of all the nonsense was when Congress, or was it the Supreme Court, took prayer out of school.
That too.
So that
That too.
to me that's the origin, because then you have, I think that happened like in the mid 50s.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have that happen,
Yeah.
and then what happens to the next
Mm-hmm.
generation?
Yeah.
You have generation that are free with the
Mm-hmm.
sex, they're free with the drugs, they're
Yeah.
burning bras,
Mm-hmm.
they're anti everything
Mm-hmm.
American, right?
Yeah.
Not that Christianity and America go hand in hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you get what I'm saying. You have your first real kind of godless
Mm-hmm.
generation moving forward,
Yeah.
and then those become
Mm-hmm.
parents, and then they produce
Mm-hmm.
godless, and then
Yeah.
godless and godless.
Less kids who don't have foundation.
Right. And
Yeah.
again, to me, that's my personal opinion on when it
No.
happened,
Yeah.
because once you remove God, people still make mistakes, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have Brett, right?
Right.
When I
Yeah.
say make mistakes, I mean sex outside of marriage, right?
I got you.
So, because Brett is a huge blessing,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to throw that out in the world,
Yeah.
because he'll be like, "Hey, wait a minute,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
him," so
I
he'll
know.
ponder
Yeah.
out that we can see 1,000
Mm-hmm.
positive things. But anyways, ultimately, so you have that, and then when you start introducing birth control in there, now you
Mm-hmm.
have a society where you were godless, and now
Yeah.
you can just have as many partners as you
Yeah.
want.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, that too. I think before that, like there was a chance that things could have rolled back. Like, you ever read Spangler?
mm,
A lot of, let's say this, a lot of like unsavory types like Spangler and stuff like that. But he is correct in the sense of like society has these cycles, and that to a certain point, there's a civilization will get to its apex, and then it will kind of rhyme with other civilizations,
mhm.
but at no point can that civilization actually turn back the clock. Like, there's never going to be a point where like somebody gets enough power and they remake like the Austrian-Hungary Empire. Like, it's not going to be a
Yeah,
thing. Time has already moved on from that, and also too, there's like paradigm shifts where people don't even consider certain things. So I think now, I think what people have to do, I think we need to. We're building an ark. Is
yeah,
what we're doing. We're building an ark, and we have to grab a hold of the family really tight. I think,
yeah,
and not make a bunch of little activists on the side of even what we would agree with,
yeah,
because that's not life. That's not your whole life is not bound up in whether you're a victim or some kind of racial problem or whatever, even if it is real. You have to be able to uh, rise above. You have to keep moving forward,
yeah,
and that's the only. And the kids do that. Like, kids will do that. Like, at no point am I ever going to look back at my dad's life and think like, I need to throw this away, or something like that, or I need to get rid of what he did. I have to take it and keep passing it. I have to
Right.
keep moving. Yeah.
And so having all those brothers and sisters, so like my joking question whenever I was like, when you're like, hey, mom, dad, can you stop?
Oh yeah,
Right, right.
yeah, yeah.
So like that comes from a lack of understanding of kind of what you just said. Like I grew up with just one brother, and it's easier for parents to
Right.
have a 3-2-2, right? Whereas with you, like you grew up in a family where you accept it. So like since I have never been in that scenario,
Yeah.
like just like you just said, I've never contemplated it.
Yeah.
My mom told me at one point she wanted a total of 4 kids,
Yeah.
and I was like, "How in the world?" Because we didn't have a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
My parents, when my dad became a realtor 25 years ago, that's when things shot up, right? For
Yeah. Oh
for them, I'm
yeah.
like, why couldn't you been a realtor like way earlier
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
But ultimately, what it boils down to, it's like I can't fathom what you grew up in, and
Right.
then but you since you grew up into it, you know how to manage that. So you know how to manage a bunch of bodies in a small
Yeah.
space.
Yeah. I think also too it takes like there what is it like military has this saying where it's like embrace the suck or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. There is like a part of that where you get to the point where you don't even it's not even like a consideration. It's just you just keep
Yeah.
you just do
It's
it.
just
You
your
just yeah,
life.
it
That's
just
and
is.
that's really the entire
Yeah.
point of this whole thing is like showing that yes, there are still families out there that are still doing this and they're producing
Yeah.
great people. Because like for me, like I didn't get to know your dad very well, and I
Right.
don't even know your mom at all.
Yeah.
But like they were always great people. I always heard good things as far
Yeah.
as when y'all worked with the homeless, right?
Yes, that
Because
was a
that's
big
how
portion.
your parents and my parents really hit it off was in the homeless ministry, which
Yeah.
you took part of, right? That
Yes.
was kind of like not so
Yeah.
much a requirement, that was just
That
like,
was what you're gonna do.
yeah,
That's what we're doing. That's what you're gonna do. And I didn't mind that. I thought it was pretty fun. I mean, I met like friends and stuff. Still, kind of we don't really keep in touch, but I mean, I hear stuff from them every once in a
yeah,
while.
I get it.
But I think it was 2013 was when we really like we're gonna do the homeschooling thing. The school that I was going to at the time, it's gotten better now, but it was just like a drop off point for it was free enrollment. So it was just like whatever criminal is not accepted by like Fort Worth or whatever, and we're just gonna dump them here. And they did that, and it got bad really quick, like really immediately. I mean, they were. What was crazy? They were like they were so desperate to keep the state off of them. They swapped the like grading averages for tests and daily work, and this is what like hurt my grades. So like your daily work is only worth 20% of your overall grade. 80% of your overall grade is based on testing. So it was a way to boost
Yeah,
like testing and overall grade averages. It didn't work. The state slowly come in and fix everything and kick some teeth in. But that like it like shot everyone down. Like good kids like couldn't get ahead. It was just like it was a slog. And especially it sucks because when you're a kid and you know it and you're like seeing it, and when a 12-year-old should not have the insight to know that your school's messing up.
yeah,
That should
yeah,
not be a thing. And when kids like realize that because they are intuitive, they give up quick because they're powerless. They can't do
right.
anything.
I'm in this
Yeah.
horrible situation, and doesn't matter how smart I am
Yeah, it
because the
doesn't.
state's screwing up
Yeah.
everything.
The state did a 1984 and decided to basically do an optics thing and not even worry about your like skill or whatever. Just kind of just shot you down. So, but once we realized that, we were like, we're gonna do the homeschooling thing. Forget about this. And while we were doing homeschooling every Friday and sometimes on Saturday, we would what was it called? Metro Relief was they're still operating. If you ever check them out on Facebook, they're good. They're owned by a different guy now, but he's pretty cool from what I've seen. And we would take a bus, and that was a soup kitchen. So we would come from the near Dallas where they were operating, and then we would drive all the way to Fort Worth in that bus, and then we would feed people at a park.
Yeah,
And that was pretty interesting. And also too, you do get acquainted with like how bad things can get.
yeah, and
So
you see
yeah,
the same people over and over and
over and
over
over.
again. Yeah,
Yeah. which is disheartening because you're like, I thought we were trying to make a difference, but
Yeah. Well, I
you know,
mean, one
you
of the
know.
things that is out there, and I think you know this because you work with them,
Hmm.
is most people that are homeless now are choosing to be homeless
Yes,
rather
that
than
is true.
actually doing that. One of the things that, because I work with the homeless
Hmm.
too, not as much as you
Yeah.
have, but like one of the things that was the most eye-opening thing for
Hmm.
me is, and this didn't stop us from still going
Oh
out there and
yeah, yeah,
helping, but like so it was. I'll never forget. It was me, my friend Aaron, my friend Josh, and then another lady from church
hmm,
named Michelle. There was a freeze coming to
yeah,
DFW,
yeah.
and we were like, "Hey, how about this? Let's go. Let's ask a bunch of places to donate."
Hmm.
We went and asked a bunch of places to donate. They donated beanies,
Yeah,
gloves, everything and we told them what we were doing.
yeah.
Show up there.
Hmm.
Homeless people come up there. They kind of dig through the stuff, and they're like,
Hmm.
"Yeah,
Yeah,
doesn't match what
doesn't
I'm
match
wearing."
my attire.
Yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't
and
fit the.
I'm like looking at his attire, and again, they're homeless, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And the attire is like, I'm like, but
yeah.
it's gonna be cold. Nah, that's fine.
Not
And then
bad.
you have the one you either have the ones that like, hey, I don't want anything to do with this because it
Hmm.
doesn't match my attire. And then again, it's free, and where I'm not going to stop you from grabbing a bunch. So you'll see someone come
Yeah,
in like,
yeah, yeah,
oh, beanie, yeah, beanie two,
yeah.
beanie three, and then
Uh,
kind of walk off. And I'm like, okay, there's the balance.
yeah,
There's the balance. Like you have people that are there,
yeah,
and then I also saw this one thing where this guy was shaving,
yeah.
and what he was shaving with
Hmm.
was a comb that they had used. I don't know if it was rubber bands or something,
Oh
but they
wow.
had. It was a comb that they had took out all of the bristles,
Yeah,
and then they had put like a blade on there,
that's
and so
crazy.
he was like shaving with like this.
That's wild.
I
That's
still,
nuts.
dude, I have forgotten so many things in my life, but I can remember some dude looking in like a rear view mirror of a car shaving. I'm like, what is he doing? Because it
That's
looked like a
crazy.
comb. And
Yeah,
then when he was like, he's looking like this, I was like, that's like a razor tied
yeah.
to a.
It's a weapon slash
It
shaving
is.
device. Yeah.
It is, but yeah, that was the main thing outside of doing like the
Hmm.
feeding of the homeless and stuff like that. To
Yeah.
me, that was the most wild story because every single one of them knew that a freeze was coming,
Oh yeah.
and they would rather freeze than wear
Yeah.
dark blue gloves with their
Yeah.
faded gray whatever.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like yeah, we had a lot of that. Like it just kind of realizing that, oh, this is like deeper than just like people down on their luck,
Yeah,
which is part of it. That is a part of it. But
it is.
it's not the full picture.
Right.
There's like a psychological element that we don't quite comprehend. It's like kind of hard to like get a hold of.
Well, somewhere, I don't know when,
Hmm.
right, recent,
Yeah.
within the last 30 years,
Hmm.
they shut down a lot of the mental wards around the United States.
Yeah, it was the 70s.
Yeah, so when
Yeah.
they shut them down, the crazy people only had one
Yeah.
place to go, and that was the streets.
Yeah, and I think that was because of the Stanford prison experiment. You ever heard of that?
Mm-mm.
So I think that's what it's called. I'm sure people will correct you and me. I'm sure they'll blame us for being wrong about everything. But
Chandler, get out of here. Don't ever have that guy on here ever again.
uh, Google exists, man. I don't know what to tell you. So the Stanford prison experiment was this horrifying thing. I think a bunch of college kids did, and this kind of uh, not to get too conspiratorial, but this was part of like the MK Ultra stuff.
Okay, yeah.
So understanding human psychology, how do we weaponize it? So this, I think a bunch of college kids made like a mock prison,
Hmm.
and they randomly selected like people who were going to be prisoners, people who were going to be guards, and what they found was that abuse on a wide scale carries out on both sides.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah, and like so guards are like paying enforcers of other prisoners to mess up other prisoners, and those guards are taking like bribes and money, and like it's just got real weird. It's something that still carries out in modern prisons today. Like, you ever seen 60 Days In?
no, but I'm aware now that you explain what you're
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah, with the
yeah,
MK Ultra stuff. Yeah,
yeah. So 60 Days In, they do a more dry version of this where they're like, "There's corruption in the prison. We got to go find it. So we're gonna send in a fourth grade teacher from Chicago." And I'm like, I don't know why you would send that guy in, but
do,
okay.
do, do,
Yeah, I
do.
know. And what happens is they never get down to the bottom of who is bringing in the contraband. The reason why is because the people who are running it are allowing it to
Right.
get
They
out.
have to.
Yeah, and they get paid for it.
Yeah.
So
The
yeah.
thing is, though, is I don't have a problem with
I don't.
that.
I don't think it's that big a
And the
deal.
reason why
Mm-hmm.
is that contraband
Yeah.
that is being brought in is keeping those inmates
Yeah, docile.
docile.
Yeah, I agree. I
And
think yeah.
because the fact that, like, have you ever gone to Houston?
Yes,
Have you seen the Huntsville prison?
I believe so. Yeah,
It's
it's huge.
massive.
Yeah.
Let's say that there are, I don't know how many, let's say there are 5,000
Mm-hmm.
inmates there. They have a force of maybe 200.
Yeah.
So you have you
Yeah.
have a military size group of people
Yeah.
that are being held at bay by, again, there's bullets and guns and stuff
Mm-hmm.
like that, but still,
Yeah.
like, how in the world do you keep a population that is overwhelming to the
Yeah.
guards? You let them think that they're getting over.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, look, I got this pack
Yeah.
of
I got a
cigarettes.
phone.
Yeah, I got a
Yeah.
phone. I'm
Yeah.
texting, all this sort of stuff. You let them
I
think that
agree.
they're winning.
Yeah.
And then you do the same thing in Shawshank, right?
Yeah.
If you've
Yeah.
ever seen that movie,
Mm-hmm.
like, when the warden wants to go see someone, they'll flip their
Yeah.
thing for a reason for them to go. And
Yeah.
I get it. You have a functioning mini society inside of a prison.
Yeah. It gets crazy. Like my older brother was a prison guard for a while. He was saying that like that was his analysis. He's like, if something kind of, from what I remember, I could be wrong, but that was always his worry, was like a major turning where, like, you have like an MBK situation where like the prison goes crazy, and that has happened before. There
Right.
was I want to say it was like Colorado or something. It was somewhere in the middle America where they had like a really bad prison overthrow, and it led to some people dying, guards.
Always does.
Yeah, it always does. And the what happens in prison too on a epigenetic level is that, like, you basically go through like second puberty as a grown man, which means that your like testosterone boosts, like, I think it's like 4x what it usually is in times of like warlike stress.
Yeah.
And that's why, like, you have guys who can break out of handcuffs that require like 400 pounds of square, 400 psi pressure to pull out of handcuffs. And that was like a big worry, was that, like, where these aren't like, and also too, these guys aren't idiots. They're like, they have access to libraries and stuff like that, and they get really smart. Like, I love researching prison gangs and how they operate and stuff like that. And what you see is, like, these guys are not stupid. They're very maniacal, but they're not.
Yeah. They have to
Stupid.
figure out how to manipulate their
Yeah,
way
yeah.
into doing stuff, and then
And they get really good at martial arts. And yeah, they get really.
that's weird that
Yeah.
they would let them train in martial
No,
arts.
they do. Yeah, they do. Because you can't, like, they gotta have, like, they gotta be able to move.
Yeah, basketball. Just
yeah,
do basketball.
yeah, just do basketball. Yeah.
Why would you train them in jiu-jitsu or
Yeah,
something like that?
yeah. I think they have like they've acquired, because of UFC stuff has gotten so
Yeah,
big. They've gotten into mixed martial arts recently.
that's what I mean. Like, jiu-jitsu is blood chokes, right?
Yeah.
Like, I can put you in a chokehold, and you can breathe, and then all of a sudden you're passed out because it's a
Yeah.
blood choke, and if you don't let it go,
No more.
you will expire.
You will expire,
You will
yeah.
expire. But ultimately, yeah. So that's kind of that's wild that your brother was a. Did he get out of it
Yeah,
because
he got out of that
was?
pretty quick. He wasn't
Yeah.
there long.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. God,
We had to do strip searches
Yeah.
on people, on these huge mutants.
yeah, God bless
Yeah,
him for doing
and
that.
he had a funny story where he was like, some guy who was like one of his biggest dudes there. He had to like do a strip search on the guy, and the guy already hates him.
Yeah,
And he's like, what did he do? My brother was like, I need you to open your mouth for me real quick. And he like basically did this thing where he like opened his mouth and he did like that. Like, just, I'm so pissed. Like, I could do anything right now.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. And all the guards and everything started laughing in the middle of that. But I mean, it's a different world. I
Yeah.
mean, I couldn't have done it. But I mean, the homeless stuff and the releasing of the wards is because of that experiment. When in reality, that's always been a reality in like human understanding. It's just that we live in a modernized world where we're like, bad things happen.
yeah. Well,
What do you mean?
So like, we go to church over in the Keller area, right? But if you take Beach, there's this old lady,
Yeah.
that is over there,
Mm-hmm.
and she's been over there for months and months and months. It
Yeah.
makes me wonder, like I don't know if it's like I don't know why she's still there,
Yeah. Yeah. I
right?
don't. I don't.
So like I don't like she's just sitting there generally in the same spot out in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of the sun. She's white, but her skin is leathery and
Yeah.
tan. So I don't understand like I know cops drive past there all
Mm-hmm.
the time. So it's like why don't cops do something about it? Why isn't she relocated? I don't know.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
I don't know the rules or the law or something like
Yeah.
that, but she is clearly out of her mind
Oh yeah.
because every time that I we drive past her,
Mm-hmm.
she's always like talking to herself or yelling at the sky
Mm-hmm.
or something like
Yeah.
that.
What back? So it was a funny thing. Like back during the Civil War, there was a big uptick in like psych ward uh, admittance. We'll say that because Civil War was the first industrial war,
Yeah.
and no one could have ever predicted what was going to come of that. And later that would be World War One, which is like the fulfillment of the Civil War and its capabilities.
Yeah. Which is
Um,
to me the like Civil War was bad, but I really when you read the tactics of World War One, I hate World War One so
no, yeah,
much.
I've now like I used to be really big into like historical war films, like the Thin Red Line and
Yeah.
all that. I can't really watch them anymore. I mean, I'm not the sensitive guy, but it's like it's too much. It's just
Yeah.
like I can't really get into it not anymore. I need like a fantasy element to my whatever.
I interrupt you, but you were talking. You said the Civil War. You said there was an uptick in.
Yes, in mentally ill people because of that. And what happened was when Reconstruction started, they started pushing people from the psych ward kind of to do like menial tasks. And so through discipline and work, what would happen is that people would actually kind of come out of
Hmm.
their issues, which all psychological problems like it's cyclical, and it feeds in on itself. The goal is to get the person out of the cycle. It's like with
Yeah.
anything like drugs or something.
So was there a reason why was it
Soldiers,
soldiers that were missing limbs that couldn't get over the
yeah,
fact because when you got shot with one of those bullets
mm-hmm.
for the lack of a better word like the ball,
Mm-hmm.
like if you got shot with those
Yeah, mini
nine
ball,
times out of ten you lost
mm-hmm.
wherever you got shot because
Yeah,
of the bacteria and
mm-hmm.
everything that's on the actual ball.
Yeah, and what's funny too is like the capability to save a limb back then was possible, but it was because of that specific
It was lead,
round.
wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a
Yeah,
soft lead mini ball projectile. It was
yeah,
usually about 50 caliber,
yeah,
and it was the first mass-produced rifle, meaning that there's a rifling in the barrel,
yeah,
and it's going to go where you point it, and so but they're so heavy they drop. So when you're doing line combat and you have guys 100 yards out and you're shooting a volley, there's a lot of drops. So you're talking about like a lot of groin,
yeah,
hip, and leg injuries, and also too they bounce and they skip, so you're getting like foot and shin injuries.
yeah,
But the ball is so big, it doesn't have a very high velocity. It's that bone will take it, and it'll travel up the marrow of the bone, which means the ability to. So that's like your nerves, like the
hmm,
ability to reproduce, like red blood cells goes away, and
yeah,
that leg is functionally dead. So it's not so much that the medical stuff was bad; it was awful, but it was not. It was because of that technology. It was the technology that was doing it, and that's why you have things like the rules of war, like what can you use,
right,
things like that. Because yeah. So I mean, a lot. You're watching. I mean, families got annihilated during the Civil War, and
yeah,
if you're like the last guy, or like you lose. I mean, also too like people are fighting their cousins and
yeah,
brothers and stuff like that. Like you're going through a pile of bodies that was the North, and then you see like an old childhood friend you haven't seen in 6 years,
all because they were on the
all
wrong side
because
of the
they're on the
dirt.
wrong side of the dirt.
Yeah,
Yeah, and so it caused a lot of like psychosis. But what happens is like through discipline, they were able to manage it by themselves through work. That was like the idea, and it did work. It calmed down.
yeah,
But once modernity started, things started getting more comfortable. Reconstruction's over. We're now established civilization. We're a unified nation. It starts to uptick back up because people start losing their purpose,
right,
and that's when you have like this is when like America starts to see. I don't believe everyone thinks this, but I think some throughout time, like you start seeing like America become the like war as a necessity kind of thing. Not all the time. I'm not saying that America's evil, but that's when like every man needs their big narrative to follow, and rather than just focusing on your home, it's always kind of focused abroad now. And we're gonna go fix this. We're gonna get rid of this guy, and blah 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 blah, which is necessary sometimes,
Yeah.
but it's not good for the civilian, the American family. It's not a
Yeah.
long term thing that's going to carry out for eons.
Right. For me
Yeah,
personally, like I'm an isolationist.
I am too.
I would rather us throw up our borders,
Hmm.
fix our own problems, and
Yeah.
then like if Britain needs us, we show up. If
Hmm.
France needs us, we show up. But
Yeah.
like, so I can see where the American government could say, okay, well,
Hmm.
we fixed everything here at home, so
Yeah.
now let's look to see if
Yeah.
we could help someone else out, and then here comes Germany and Austria going
Hmm.
after each other,
Yeah.
and then it grows
Hmm.
into a bigger and bigger conflict.
Yeah. We have to save Europe. That's another thing too. Is like like America for a long time. I mean, like I don't agree with it, but they were into like you ever heard of like pan European whatever. This was like it was like
Like the European Union.
a kind of, but this was like a more traditional footing that was like where it was based on like race science,
Okay.
But the idea was that like uh, the 20s in America and all these bigger people were like, we need to do a pan-European state, and everyone just needs to be of one big empire essentially, and America's going to be like this vassal state to it, and that was like a big deal in the 20s. Like everyone was cool with that, and
Yeah.
then all of
Well,
a
that's
sudden.
what that spawned the League of Nations.
Yeah, like
Okay.
that was the League of Nations was a more socialized version of that.
Okay.
Like that was always kind of been in the works forever, especially after World War One, because World War One was so devastating that like Europe now still hasn't recovered from that population loss. Like it hasn't really come back from that, and uh, so like the 20s kind of kicked that off, and then you have like people like Oswald Mosley, like early fascism, start rising up, and people agree, like on a wide scale.
Yeah.
They're like, we need a pan-European, kind of almost bordering on one world governance. And well, one guy comes along and says, Tiny Mustache Man, Austrian
Yeah.
painter, shows up and says, all right, let's do it. And then all of a sudden, everyone's really adverse to it because, well, in order to make that, it's very nasty.
Right.
It's a very rough situation. So he pulled the veil open on that plan, and people really were, and that we cut that off pretty quick.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but the reason for that stuff happening is because of these like ideas, and they carry out, and they're godless ideas really.
Yeah.
They're
That's
they're
ultimately what it boils down to.
yeah they're
Is
they're very materialistic. Whereas like even in ancient Christianity, there was always an understanding of like preserving a people and making sure they have their little area, and not expanding everything out to be like, you got to rule the world now, you got to save everyone else, like
Crusades
yeah,
is a little
crusades,
different.
yeah,
They weren't all about leaving
no,
leaving people alone.
no, yeah,
But that's one of the things that for me, like, I'm glad that America existed to stop the
yeah,
guy with the funny mustache,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because at the time, of course, as you know, we were
mm,
in the Depression. So
yeah,
I think what World War II did for the upper echelon
hmm,
of our country, showed them that war is profitable,
yes,
and that if we need to keep our economy going
hmm,
so that way the Great
yeah,
Depression never happens again,
hmm,
then we got to keep them focused on world
hmm,
world issues.
yeah,
Because since World War II, maybe even World War One,
hmm,
we've kind of been
yeah.
we've kind of been in everybody's business.
Yeah, and this is when you start getting into people like Patton's idea. Even in the movie Patton,
Hmm.
there's a there's a thing everyone quotes this. So Patton's big quote is that we fought the wrong enemy. Now what that means is that he didn't like Hitler, but what he said was uh, essentially was that the war needed to continue to get rid of communism,
You're right.
which I kind of agree with.
Yeah.
in a way.
Well,
Because
the problem
yeah,
was with that, and as you know, like Hitler's biggest mistake was turning on Russia
yes,
in
yeah,
the middle of winter.
yeah,
And so when Russia switched sides to our side, like how do you
no,
be
you
like,
can't.
hey, high five, we
Yeah,
defeated Hitler, and then right after that, of course, the Cold War began. But like, how do you turn around and be like, all right, now we're going to attack you?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, you can't. But here's the thing: before Hitler's rise to power, communism already existed.
Right.
So you ever heard of the Freikorps?
Mm.
So Germany had a communist revolution in the 20s, and it almost happened. Like they almost completely. We would have been World War II would have looked completely different. It would have been just us fighting Russia and communist vassal states.
Mm.
It would have been a completely different ballgame. So what happened was the proto Yahtzees, the proto Yahtzees, uh, came into being from a group called the Freikorps.
Mm.
And the Freikorps was a bunch of ex World War One veterans who were they saw a lot,
Yeah.
and they were pretty brutal, and they were very exotic. Like all their weapons and everything were very mismatched, and they were always into the new things. It's kind of how you get like Germans' technological capability.
Right.
And so this is when they're supposed to be disarmed. Like we're like, no more, you can't have a military. Well, they had a workaround where they're like, well, we need an internal guard, so we're gonna have the Freikorps. And like they look exactly like World War II Germans. It's
Right.
crazy. And they stopped the communist revolution, and this is when you start getting like things like the places to help you concentrate, those areas.
Safe spaces.
Yeah, safe spaces. Those safe spaces start getting built around that time, and it was originally intended for communist influence.
Mm.
So, like, you're going to go concentrate, you're going to go help, you're going to go
Yeah.
learn, be re-educated, and that was because of that. And also, too, America had a whole early CIA. It wasn't quite OSS yet, but it was more like corporate, I think,
Mm-hmm.
if I remember correctly. And it was just people realizing that there's a lot of Russians showing up to our colleges all of a sudden.
Yeah.
This is like in the 30s, and then all of a sudden Russia starts getting like all this technology that's just ours, and they don't have that capability.
Right.
They lost all that in the revolution. How are they getting all this stuff? Well, it turns out they've
Stealing.
been stealing
Yeah.
from us right after World War One ended. And like like MiG, the MiG fighter jet,
Mm-hmm.
like that guy was one of the guys stealing all our
Well,
plane technology.
I mean, there's a reason why the CIA had to be
Yeah, made. Yeah.
right. So you have your CIA, your FBI, those things
Yeah.
in concept are great things, but when
They get out of hand when there's no war.
no
That's the
war
thing.
and they're politicized.
And they're
Yeah.
politicized. Yeah.
But yeah, my thing with our involvement in that was I don't understand why that Pearl had to take place.
Pearl Harbor. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't understand why.
Yeah.
There's I know that the president of the United States has to get Congress to declare war. He can't just go up there and do it, right? He can
Yeah.
authorize strikes, but he can't go up there and be like, "We're at war," right?
Yeah.
So I get why. I understand why, but like I don't know why. Why can't we just say, okay, we know this thing is rising, we got to knock it down? But when you look at the way Pearl was handled, it's just like, ugh. Have you ever been to Pearl Harbor?
I have not. I'd love to go. Ever read the book The Gallant Men?
Mm-mm.
It's about a guy's, I forget his name, but it's about a guy's account of Pearl Harbor and the stuff he went through. It was really harrowing. It was very disturbing.
So I'll tell
Yeah.
you that like one of my dreams, like one of my bucket list things was to go to Pearl and let's see, Dexter's 16, so 17 years ago, we were able to. I had a buddy that was in the Air Force that was stationed over at Hickam Air Force Base,
Oh, wow. Okay.
and so we went and stayed with him. All we had to do was
Yeah.
pay for our flight. We didn't have to do a hotel
That's
or anything
cool.
like that. We stayed on the base with them.
Yeah.
I got to see some things that I cannot talk about because
yeah.
whatever. But like we did get to go on and see Pearl.
Yeah.
And I have out of all the wars that we have been entrenched in, World War II is the most fascinating
It
from
is.
a
We're still learning about it.
right. We're still learning from it. We still we are what 3 generations removed from it,
Yeah.
and the effects of World War II
Still carry on.
from the paranoia aspect is still reverberating now. So whenever I got to see Pearl, it's like you have an appreciation more so than reading in a book or seeing
Sure.
pictures, because like that you're on this area where there are people. Granted, the bodies are probably disintegrated by now,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? But like you're standing on a cemetery of fellow Americans
Yeah.
that were fed for no particular reason
Yeah.
other than like, okay, we trained you, you've gone through boot camp, all this sort of stuff. Now we're just gonna give you over to
Yeah.
Japan just so we can
Get this moving.
get it going.
Yeah. Do you ever? I think the big. I forget the submarine's name, but there's like a palpable moment. Like, so Russia went to war with Japan. The Russo-Japanese War happened. I think almost around World War One. I could be wrong. Maybe a little after. And that was like a big deal. And America realized that Japan was industrializing. And there's actually a book, it's like a historical fantasy book written way back in the day that talks about America going to war with a new Japanese empire. It predicted World War
Yeah.
II, the
Wow.
Eastern Front. It's really wild. And so you get into that was always a worry. It was always a worry. But when the threat became really evident, there was this insane submarine. I wish it's a big long string of numbers. I forget what it's called, but there it showed up on like the Gulf of Mexico or somewhere like in the Bahamas or something, and it was a Japanese sub, and it was the biggest submarine in the world. No one had ever seen anything like it, and it came up and it had an airstrip where it assembled two planes. It spun in these. It assembled two planes, and then the planes took off, and it was two Zero fighters flew
Wow.
off, and everyone was like, "We don't have that.
Do we still have that now?
We
No.
don't." And it was the craziest thing, and it was just people on the coast watching. It was like a show of power. I think after that they were like, "We gotta knock this down," because at the time China had their own like little World War II, and China back then we viewed it like we do Africa today. So like Africa is this very splintered
Yeah.
kind of like there's nations, but like they're constantly changing. Like just recently, like Zimbabwe was Rhodesia, and like we had new countries have cropped up in the past 50 years in Africa. China was the same way. It was just divided by warlords, and there's actually it's funny. There's a whole book called uh, Pistols of American Warlords, and it's just about all their like cheap copies they made of like guns and stuff from our
Yeah.
stuff. But it was yeah, and that was always a land that like needed to be tamed. So like you had like the Boxer Rebellion where you had like Christian people that were trying to get an influence. Like, come on, let's get a civilization going here. You don't need to be doing pagan stuff,
Right.
But then there was like that rebellion, and we had to leave because I mean it was just like not happening. And so this led them to like the Japanese were like these people are living in fields and they don't have any industry. Let's just go
take them over.
Let's go take them over. They don't even have like a unified narrative. It was like it was just like little tribal narratives.
Yeah.
They weren't unified, and so Japan was like, all right, well, let's go do Nanking. Let's go to Nanking, and then Korea, and but yeah, I mean, the fears were around way before, which is really wild to me.
Yeah.
We see history as like this painting of just like this instant, immediate action that's going on, but in reality, it's this slow burn.
Well, it's a slow burn, but like we on this end of everything, we get to see the results of it. So like we know what happens when communism is put in the forefront because it's godless. Not that capitalism is God,
No,
but you have communism that is godless, which results in a guy named Stalin who will look at his own countrymen and be like, you know what? I don't need like 120 million of you. Let's just go and execute. Same thing with Mao, like Mao doing his thing, killing all those people. It's like you have when when you don't look at, and it goes all the way down to middle class people too,
Sure.
where like when you don't look at each other as image bearers of God, then you're just
Yeah.
you're cattle.
Yeah, that was the doctrine of militant atheism, which is what they called it. It was
Yeah.
literally called militant atheism, and that's when you go into the 60 million, 40 million, something around there. They think it's a little more uh, dead of just religious cleansing from
Yeah.
Russia after the Tsar was gunned down. Um, and yeah, I mean, it was those accounts are really wild. Like to the point where you're making nations of cannibals. You
Yeah.
ever hear about that with Ukraine?
Mm-mm.
So Ukraine was always like a little. It's always kind of been its own thing. Like a lot of those people, they descend from Turkey,
Mm-hmm.
so they're not quite Russian, but there's like this weird fusion. So there's always like an understanding that there was like kind of a dividing line culturally. So what happened was the Tiny Mustache Man people showed up and they started a proxy force in Ukraine that still carries on today. And they were punished for that by Stalin and Lenin, and they literally walled it off. You couldn't get out, and they stopped sending food in, and they just it was like an experiment. Let's just see what happens. Gain of function. Let's just see what goes on.
Chaos.
Yeah, and so what happened was that once the starving really set in, the cannibalism started, and the Christians were like, "I'm not going to engage in that." So they were the first to go,
Yeah.
and it was just kind of these godless people left alone. And they said there was two jobs. I'm not going to get into one of them, but one of them was like you just became a human hunter.
Yeah.
And no one knows about that. There's very few people that know about that. It was a big part of. It was like decades of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
What time frame was that?
I want to say that was like near 30s, so like around World War II.
Yeah.
And everyone ignored it.
Well,
We
because
didn't-
they had bigger
yeah,
problems.
they had bigger problems,
They
but
had bigger problems.
granted, like no one. I mean, that was like there's one documentary about it that I could find.
I never even heard of it.
Yeah, and that's why Ukraine does not like Russia, but
Yeah.
also Russia doesn't like Ukraine because of their certain influences that still continue today.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you see that when the Ukraine stuff started? I'm sorry, we said we are going to avoid politics. I'm sorry.
No, that's
yeah.
fine. We'll move on from
We'll
there.
move
but-
on from there. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
but no, it's fine.
Yeah.
You didn't bring it up, so it's all good. But no. So let's move from
Yeah.
from
history.
from history, right? Let's move into
Yeah.
the era of you're out there feeding the homeless,
Yes.
and then all of a sudden this man walks into your life.
Yeah.
His name is Brett.
Yeah.
And
Brett.
you're like, that guy is my hetero life mate.
Yeah,
for-
that's what
for
I
good.
called it.
Because for me, like, you and, again, I barely know you, right? I know your personality type deal. So, like, you and him being friends was always perplexing to me.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, you are the manual labor guy. You've helped your dad build stuff. You're out there working with the homeless. You're doing all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And like I always was wondering, like, how in the world did you and Brett become like hetero life mates? and the thing is, it's like because it's just y'all are so polar opposite. At least I think y'all are so polar opposites.
Maybe a little bit, yeah.
Because you literally said,
yeah.
I hate Ben 10 earlier.
Yeah.
That is on record. And that's like his deal. Like, decades later, he's still
talking about it.
He's still
Yeah.
angry. Like, I talk about He-Man and Batman and stuff like that, but I don't carry on about it.
Yeah, no, he's still furious about he's gonna die on that hill. He'll
Yeah.
be the last one. But yeah, I think I was, I mean, like there wasn't a ton of people interested in like entertainment and like stories and stuff around where I was. I mean, there was always kind of an interest, but like I was really into Star Wars, like Star Wars before it got bad or worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I get what you're saying.
Yeah. And like none of my family, my family was like, that sucks. It's stupid.
So because you're into stories and stuff like that, now I get, as our conversation has has grown.
Yeah, from
That's why you like D&D.
oh yeah, I love D&D.
So,
It's fun.
right, and then now that I understand why you like the fantasy world
Mm-hmm.
and then also storytelling.
Yeah.
So, have you ever dungeon mastered?
Yes, I am currently.
Oh, okay. I thought Brett was y'all's dungeon master.
Well, so he is for the thing that we have called
Yeah.
Planesbreakers, and he's actually merged two groups. We have a whole franchise now. It's crazy. We had two different groups. Some people fell off on our end with when me and Nicole were playing, and then he had another like separate game that was going on that merged the two.
Okay.
And so now we have like a group of like 8 people. It's like huge.
I can't remember. Were you there the night that we did the one shot where Brett
No, I
finally?
wasn't.
You were not.
No, I should have been.
Did you hear about it?
No,
Oh,
not
you
really.
didn't.
Maybe I did. I just don't
So
remember.
Brett was like, "Hey, he's been wanting me to get involved in D&D," and I tell him it's not my thing. It's not my thing.
Yeah, yeah.
He's like, "Well, let's do a one shot. It only take like an hour or 2 hours, something
Yeah.
like that, right?" I think we started like 7, and then like 1 a.m. I was like, "Dude, I got to go to bed." And I started this thing where it was. I told him I was going to have the Arnold accent. So anytime that I was a part of it, I was like, "All right, let's do this, man!"
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then every person that I interacted with, I always asked them for $5.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
this went on for hours. It started
Oh,
like
yeah.
at like 7 to 1 a.m. or however long it went on. And it's just like, yes, you've gotten to the crime boss. All right, I'd like to ask the crime boss for $5.
$5.
And one of the guys that was in the one shot, he had a magic ability. So he's like, "Well, how much do you want?" I'm like, "I don't know, $5 million." So he conjured up
That's awesome.
$5 million.
That's
So
funny.
the next time we met, someone was like, "Could I have $5?" I just kept asking for $5.
Yeah.
Just because, again,
That's
I
really funny.
don't understand the world.
Yeah, I get you.
right.
Yeah.
So but I get why people do it. Right. I'm not wanting to be a part of it. Isn't me not saying
No, I
that
get it,
anybody
yeah.
should, because my wife's brother has been a part of. Again, they could have restarted or whatever, but we've been married for 20 years, and I have known Jason for at least 21 years,
Wow.
and throughout that entire time, he has always D&D'd with the same
That's
group
awesome.
of people.
That's
I think
crazy.
the same group of people from
Yeah.
high school. When him and his wife got married, they got married in some church downtown Fort Worth. That's like this castle-looking thing.
That's
and
crazy.
Him and his wife made their own crests.
Oh, wow.
So if you see the pictures,
That's cool.
It's all. He's a knight,
Yeah.
she's a princess, and all the women and
crazy.
guys that were involved were all dressed up.
That's pretty neat.
And yeah, so when I say he's into D&D,
Yeah, I was
he's
into it,
definitely
yeah.
into D&D, and finding a woman that would allow her wedding to be like that says a lot for
Yeah, it's a lot,
my
yeah.
sister-in-law. So
Yeah.
but yeah, so D&D. I get it. Stranger Things, gives me a little bit more insight
Yeah.
to the world of D&D as well. I'm not of the opinion at all that because there's people that I know that are against D&D because if you're a mage and you cast a spell,
It's just, you might as well be doing.
you're
Yeah.
casting a spell.
Yeah.
Spells are demons. To me,
Yeah.
I don't think that at all.
I don't think that either. The reason that is a thing is because of palpable panic in the 80s and 90s. Like there was a reason to be worried about certain influences, but it's just that media grabs on to like the silliest thing. Like it's
Right.
like they'll never go deep enough to really understand a problem. They'll just grab like the silliest thing and
Yeah.
make it ironic, which is like silly because like aren't you supposed to be the news?
Yeah, what it is
You know?
is it boils down to, if they can find a reason to blame something other than the person who did it,
Yeah.
then it's not that person's fault. Because during my time, right, so the biggest thing the first kind of big thing that I remember is comic books. Comic books became a problem. So you went from the comic books being good to the golden age where everything was kind of soap washed. Like if you ever Google the Joker.
Okay.
The Joker, Golden Age, he is the goofiest looking character because
Yeah.
they whitewashed him. Or not
Right.
whitewashed him, that's not. They sanitized.
Yeah, they
they
made him whiter.
sanitized him. They
Yeah, I get
sanitized
you.
Batman, right? And then after that, it was Marilyn Manson, if you know who that
Yes.
is, right? It was industrial rock. That
Yeah.
became the
Nine
bad
Inch
guy.
Nails.
Right.
Yeah.
So after that, it became video games because
Yeah.
Columbine happened, right? And the
Yeah.
people from Columbine used Doom to build a construct of the school,
Yeah.
so that way they knew
Yeah.
where to go and everywhere. So,
If you knew how much research I did on that event.
oh really?
Oh man, Brett gets mad at me about it.
About Columbine?
Not mad. He gets like annoyed.
Well, Columbine, as in, without going too
I
much.
can't. I'm not going to. But I
Oh,
mean,
okay.
so it's a thing I've looked into, and it's very scary, terrifying. It's just very worrying.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
the fact that that it has happened again, and it's still happening, and like we don't have.
Yeah.
We've put up precautions, right? You know, over in a few years ago, the thing that happened in Uvalde, Texas,
Yeah.
was kind of wild. But yeah, so you know, after video games were the proxy, I think because they kind of blame two things. They kind of blame video games and not so much the Matrix movie, but like violent movies in general.
Yes. Yes.
So you had video games that were being attacked and movies that were being attacked at the same time, and then after that, it's kind of been
Let go. So this is also too. They let go of the gun debate recently. So every time there was one of these events, there was always guns are bad.
right.
Fair
Right.
enough. But they've stopped, and I don't know why. It's a little worrying to me.
I think it's they stop because they know, without jumping too much in the political realm, I think that they understand that the overwhelming majority of Americans, whether they're
Yeah.
on the right or the left, are proponents of guns. It's only the people that are on the far crazy left that are anti-gun, because I understand that if somebody comes in through the front door of my house, that
Yeah.
I'm going to protect you, everybody in this house,
Yeah.
and I need the ability to do that.
Right, yeah.
So I don't know if you're worried that they've dropped that, or
I'm worried as to like why they dropped it because it's always been that was like the thing what was his name he did the documentary about that event
the Bowling
Michael
for
was it Moore.
Michael Moore, yeah.
So yeah,
Bowling for Columbine.
Michael Moore, he had a thing that that was one of his talking points. Was like,
Yeah.
it's so easy to get this thing, and you can hurt people. Fine, but later after that, he had kind of rolled back his like understanding, and he started talking more about drugs,
Yeah.
psychological drugs and stuff.
Well, I think it just boils down to that, like, I think guns, when it comes to open, like like a debate should never come to an end when it comes to guns, because
Yeah.
we should, as a society, we should always be open to saying, okay,
Yeah,
let's not have something, right? So
Yeah.
like a machine gun, like an automatic weapon, right? There's no reason, in my opinion, that a middle class person should have an automatic weapon.
Yeah.
That should be reserved for military, right? So like I think hunting rifles, ARs,
Yeah.
because that doesn't stand for automatic
Yeah,
assault
it's- yeah, I
rifle.
know. Yeah.
You know, like AK-47s, all those ones that are out there that are semi-automatic, all
Yeah.
that sort of stuff. Like I don't have a problem
Yeah.
with those, but I really do think that a true weapon of war, like a sniper
Yeah.
rifle, high caliber sniper rifle, we shouldn't have like a bazooka, a missile
Yeah.
launcher, stuff like that. Probably shouldn't
Yeah,
have
probably
access
not.
access to that. So I haven't even thought about the fact that hasn't been a deal. But like, when is the last time that we've had mass casualty events, but nothing? I hate to say the word crazy,
Yeah,
but
I
because
know.
they're all crazy.
They're all insane.
They're all but like
It's
on a
wild.
scale that we're all like, oh my goodness, right? Because it's,
Yeah. Well, the reason there had always been those events before Column.
yeah,
The reason why that was so different and so worrying was because it became obvious that there's a continuity underlying these events, and that's what my research of the events are. I was trying to figure out what are the influences, because I don't think it's just media. Media gives an aesthetic to a thing that already exists.
Right.
That's it. The Joker, all this stuff.
Yeah.
These are people that are already kind of around. It's just that you make it to a way that's like it's a fantasy. It's above kind of like reality, so it's entertaining. The thing the thing with that is that I think people really blame things because it's an idea of like you can embody the thing, that you can become the thing that is this like ideal, like
Yeah.
and in a very negative way. Whereas like why don't the weird thing to me is, why don't you ever see that in a positive way? Why don't you ever see someone do like the crazy cool thing? Why not that? Why is it always this hyper negative?
Because we always
Yeah,
tend to focus on the negative,
yeah, man.
right? So, like, you have, it's just like when you listen to the popular podcast
Hmm.
people, they get loads and loads and loads of positive feedback.
Yeah,
But the
yeah.
one that they talk about is the
Is
guy
the
was
yeah,
like, that said, hey, go
yeah,
jump in a lake,
yeah,
right? So,
yeah.
so it's like, so I get it. We're
Hmm.
if everything's flowing this way, if all the
Hmm.
positivity is flowing this way, and then you have a little bit of negative, then you're like,
Hmm.
well, why aren't all these
Yeah.
flowing like this?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I just when it comes to that, I think that the answer potentially, and you may or may not agree with this,
Hmm.
is the undertone to stuff like Columbine
Hmm.
or things like that is a fundamental not looking at the person
Hmm.
across the table from you as an
Yeah.
image bearer of God.
No, yeah, I agree. There's a depersoning that happens, which is like a yeah. I mean, that's like the greatest psychological weapon, is to dehumanize
Yeah.
people. That's always been the goal of every government from the beginning. Is like, how do we, how do we? Because I don't know. It's that's always been the thing. And it
Right.
happens in very small individual notes where you have events like that, where it
Well,
becomes the world is the problem,
yeah.
the world is the enemy, and how much of an enemy? Well, should I learn to live in it, or should I take up arms against it completely? Because then, if it's the world, that is everyone. That is like the littlest child to the oldest man. I mean,
Yeah.
that's the whole thing.
Well, I think that when, and I think you might agree with this. I
Hmm.
keep saying that because I think that
Yeah,
you
I
will.
do. I do agree.
But no, but I think that when you take a society
Hmm.
and you dehumanize, where I don't look
Yeah.
at you
Yeah.
as a human, you're just a person that's in my
Hmm.
way,
Yeah.
then it's easy to split us up.
Hmm. That
And
too. Yeah.
and while we are split up,
Hmm.
then
Yeah.
I forget who said it, but a society that's divided is easier to conquer,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Because, like, in the era that I grew up in, my parents knew all of the neighbors up and down the
Yeah.
street, right? So, like, we know them next door because they've
Hmm.
lived here for a really long time, and their oldest is the same age as Brett.
Hmm.
I'm sorry, not Brett, Dexter. They used to be friends, but, like, I know them
Hmm.
over here, but we knew Miss Peggy before she passed away.
Hmm.
But then, like, every other person, no clue who they are.
Yeah.
And I say that we lived here 20 years, right?
Right. Yeah.
Some people move, some people change, all that
Hmm.
sort of stuff. But, like, if there's no community,
Hmm.
if something really bad happens,
Hmm.
what's going to stop them
Hmm.
from coming over
Get to know
here?
here.
Whereas if we're all, like, knowing each other, then
Yeah.
we
Hmm.
can pull resources together
You're right.
rather than being enemies. But
Hmm.
if you're a liberal or if you're a
Yeah.
conservative or whatever, and something bad happens, well, I'm not
Hmm.
going to deal with them.
Yeah.
They're not.
Yeah.
They voted for Orange Man, right? Type
Right.
deal.
True. Yeah.
So I think that you take what's going on here and then you push it out on a bigger scale. You have the dehumanization, which gives people the ability to slap, shoot,
Yeah. Yeah.
hit, do whatever
Hmm.
they do to each other when disagreements,
Yeah.
and it boils all the way down to just be neighbors.
Yeah. Exactly. I agree. Like you have to be in contact with people that you wouldn't even consider you're close with. Like even
Yeah.
at your job, like uh, this is a good thing to know too. Like giving money to your elected sheriff, stuff like I really am a big proponent of that. Like if something bad happens to you and there's like a 911 call or something, or let's say like maybe you do have a neighbor that doesn't like you and they make up stuff. Well, you're like on kind of like a white list. Like if you fund your sheriff will actually like kind of learn about you in a personal way.
Define that. What do you mean by that?
What?
Like, fund your sheriff.
So you can give money to sheriffs are elected. You
Yeah.
can give money to their campaign, and you don't have to give a ton,
Right.
But like they know about you and like you learn about that person too, like through giving them that money. Like you kind of get involved in their life. You have to know about them before. You don't want to choose someone crazy,
Right, right, right.
but you know you want to like get to know your sheriff, get to know your local officials too. Like bring donuts are like cheap. Like bring breakfast to your local. I don't know, like wherever you pay your bills. Just do that.
Like City Hall, or are you talking like the local
City
police
Hall,
department?
yeah, anything like city, where I live, City Hall and those are combined.
Yeah.
And like if you bring food, like I worked in my city for a little bit, and that's like a thing. Like it's like we know who's cool based on who's in contact with us all the time. So if
I see.
something weird goes on, like let's say like I was working for the water. Why is this guy's water not on? He always pays his stuff. We know about him. You know, he gives us food.
Yeah.
Well, we will be more likely to not turn off water.
I see what you're saying.
Yeah, so
So being
it's that kind
involved
of
in the
yeah.
community makes you
It
show up
insulates you
more.
from problems.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, example
hmm
to prove what you just said,
yeah,
there is a guy that lives on this street that
hmm
is in the council for the city. There's a lot of stupid stuff like what's going on in my backyard
yeah,
that's going on, and he ran 4 years ago
hmm
on stopping stupid stuff like that from
yeah,
happening again.
hmm
Voted for him. Him and I are friends on Facebook,
yeah,
and I wouldn't say we've gotten to know each other per se, but he
hmm
knows about my life because we're
exactly.
connected
Yeah.
and vice versa. And anytime that there's been a problem with that over there,
hmm
I've messaged him, and he has shut down that construction so many times
That's good.
because of the violations of stuff that
Yeah.
they're doing. And at one point they replaced this whole entire fence all the
hmm
way down, and they left my fence open. They took down the old
Oh, that's
fence.
nice.
Yeah, they took down the old fence,
Yeah.
and then I guess they didn't. Some sort of delivery didn't happen,
Wow.
and they just left it wide open. And I took a picture of it, and I was like,
That's
"Hey,
silly.
man, hate to bother you, but
Yeah.
like they took down my fence. I got a dog,
Yeah.
right? Like if she gets the wrong idea
hmm
when she goes out to the bathroom, she can take off.
hmm
By the end of the day, it wasn't the greatest thing, but by the end of the day,
Something.
they had
Yeah.
this mesh that went from the
Yeah.
like two houses down all the way to where they took down the old fence down, and there
Yeah.
was something that they put up to stop dogs. But like
Yeah.
if Frankie wanted to run underneath it, she
Yeah.
could have. But at least there was something
Yeah.
from a visual perspective where the
hmm
dog was like,
Yeah. Yeah. We are thankfully things haven't gotten so chaotic yet to where life isn't so. Well, it kind of is, but I mean, things are pretty mundane, and
mm-hmm,
people like remember. Like, you don't have to be like showing up to the dude's house and talking to him every time. It's just people will remember little stuff like that. Like I would, like
yeah,
when I was doing water cutoffs and stuff. Like I would remember which houses were a problem. You know, it's not in the forefront of my mind all the time, but I'm like, oh, I remember this guy. He doesn't.
yeah,
He always turns it back on when we leave. We got to put a lock on it, like that kind of thing.
yeah,
So, like, thankfully, like we're still pretty insulated. We are still blessed, and I think if you take advantage of it while things are good, you know, even like financially, like that's what people would say. But same way in relationships, like you don't if things get bad, you don't want to be like I need help.
yeah,
Where's the I need the flour now? No, that should have happened back then.
yeah.
So
So
yeah,
I mean, that's kind of why,
yeah,
like, when you are in the mortgage industry or
hmm
realtor like I am, you know that people generally move 3 to 5 years, right?
yeah, yeah,
So with the prices going up and all that sort of stuff, that's part of the reason why we've been in this house for 20 years. It's
hmm
like you see the fluctuation in people that are not prepared. Like
yeah,
everybody seems to be living, to my knowledge, for a
hmm
lot of people that I know are living kind of at that baseline at if something were to
hmm
happen,
yeah,
then
hmm
you're in trouble,
you're right.
right?
Yeah,
And we've been so blessed that we bought this house 20 years ago.
yeah, that
Granted,
is
the
a
property
blessing.
taxes have gone up because
Yeah,
of the value's gone up,
right.
but like we could, in theory, if we really pulled everything back,
hmm
we could live on one paycheck
Yeah,
and
that's
stay where
good.
we're
Yeah.
at.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, like going back to like how my parents lived and everything growing up, and that was like the thing. Like my dad bought that house for like 60K, and it
Yeah.
was run down. It's a wooden frame on concrete slab. It's not on a slab. It's on these like little individual stones,
Hmm.
kind of. And like it had a ton of problems. Like that place has been like rebuilt from the inside out, but having that security of a place that you own
Yeah.
is also a thing, you know. Like, yeah, property taxes fluctuate and all that, but it still gives you the room to, like, if things are bad, which we had moments of, like, you know, I'm not going to work 2 jobs anymore. I'm getting older. I can't do that. So we got to figure this out. You know, we're going to roll back on some things.
Yeah.
That happens. So, I mean, yeah, it's true. I agree. Like, you have to be prepared for the worst. But you also, you know, like, that's not just like being a prepper or something. Like, that's part of it.
Yeah,
But
you're always supposed to have.
yeah.
Dave Ramsey says you got to have like 6 months worth of
Yeah, yeah.
money in the bank. So
Right.
if you pop a tire, it's not going to break your bank. You
Exactly.
can still eat.
Yeah.
So, but yeah.
Yeah.
So going back to you and Brett,
Yeah. What about it?
why weren't you at the first wedding?
Oh, no. So I was working.
I know. I'm
Yeah.
just giving you a hard time.
So yeah, no. Well, to be fair to them, I wanted to go, but I mean, like that wasn't the. That's not like the big ceremony. That they
Right,
set
right,
up.
right,
So
right. No, I get it. It was like
yeah,
15 minutes. It was awesome.
yeah,
It was very intimate. I really,
yeah,
as a dad, I really
yeah.
enjoyed it.
It seemed
'Cause
cool. I wish I could have been there.
yeah, well, the
Yeah.
thing is, it's like I understand why they did this, but it's also funny
Yeah.
talking to people because I'm like, yeah, my daughter-in-law, and then I'll somehow, some way, October will come up, and I'll be like,
Yeah.
yeah, and then we're gonna get married or whatever, and they're like, wait, what?
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
Because
It is funny.
for me, like he had a hard time getting a hold of his grandpa because his
Yeah.
grandpa is really super anti cell phone.
Well,
So he only turns his cell phone on,
Mm-hmm.
I think, on the weekend. So when he's at work, because he works long shifts. So when I texted him, I was like, "Hey, his name's Daryl." I was like, "Daryl." I was like, "Brett's getting married, blah blah blah." And then he's like, "Awesome. Tell me the time and the place." Tell him time and place, and he goes, "Is there a registry?" And I said, "Yes." I was like, "But don't worry about it because because there's a second ceremony in October."
Yeah.
He doesn't text me back, calls me, and is like, "Hey, Aaron, it's Daryl." And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "What do you mean? There's another? There's another one."
Yeah.
And I said, first of all, I said, remember, this is your grandson.
Yeah, yeah.
This
Yeah,
has
no, I
nothing
get
to
it.
do with me.
Yeah.
I got married one time.
Yeah, no, it is funny. I wanted to be there just to pop in and see the family on Nicole's side and everything because I went on we went on a pretty cool little vacation with them and
Oh,
stuff
did
like
you?
that. Yeah, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. Where was it? I don't remember.
Well, we had only met her mother and I think her grandma one time. And that was when Nicole got baptized.
Yeah.
And then all we've heard since then is just, hey, be careful around them because
Yeah.
this, and this. You have more experience
Yeah.
with them. But like they were
They were fine. Yeah,
they're
they're good
phenomenally
people.
pleasant
Yeah.
people. We
Yeah.
interacted with them at lunch after they got married. There was
Yeah.
nobody said anything.
Yeah.
So we like our stress level
Yeah.
was like
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
Brett exaggerates a little bit, and
Yeah.
sometimes
Yeah.
he doesn't.
Yeah.
But like, so we were worried that that we were going to say or do
Yeah,
anything,
yeah.
and like when you don't know anybody, you have zero interaction with them. You don't want to say or spoil the occasion that it's not about you. So
Yeah.
it was just like, "Hello, I am Aaron,"
Yeah, yeah.
And then once the ceremony was over, it was like, "All right, hello, I am Aaron," also.
Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah.
it was a pleasant experience, and we look forward for October as well.
Yeah, it'll be good. I'm excited.
It's just telling people that my son's getting married twice.
Yeah.
It's just been hilarious.
I'm gonna do a 30-minute stand-up routine for my speech.
Oh, you should. Like someone that
I'm being dead serious. I'm not kidding. This isn't a joke. I'm kidding.
Here's what you do is I stole this from somebody whenever I did a best man speech, got up there and I said, I looked at the bride dead in the eyes and I said, "Thank you for settling for my friend."
That's pretty funny.
It is. It's
That's
awesome.
good. That's awesome.
Because
Yeah.
most girls can do better than the guys that
Yeah.
they're with, and so you look at them, you're like, I am thankful that
Yeah.
you settled for
It's
my.
really funny.
'Cause
Yeah.
you could have done so much better. So
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you start up. That's how you
That's
start a 30
yeah.
minute montage.
Yeah.
And if you do that, then after your
Mhm.
30 minutes, I'll stand up and I'll
Mhm.
give you a
Yeah.
standing ovation.
Yeah. I will do that. I will do that 100%. I'm gonna make him nervous. He's gonna watch this. He's gonna be thinking about it.
I should have never let him
Yeah.
talk to my
Yeah. He's
dad.
gonna change the date on me, and I'm not
Yeah.
gonna know about it. No, I'm kidding.
Or
But.
just be like, oh yeah, we're moving it from the 17th to the 20th. The 20th? What?
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, I mean, media. Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think. What else did we do after we first met? It was.
Well, for me, like every time that Brett would say I'm hanging out with Chandler,
Mhm.
like I'm sure y'all probably got in trouble. Like when I say trouble, I mean
Yeah.
like got into some
Mhm.
trouble,
Yeah.
right? But I never looked at you as some of his other friends were like, I don't like that guy because they don't present themselves.
Yeah.
Like I said, I didn't know your family intimately, but I knew of your family, so I knew that you were a good kid.
Yeah.
But like, there's some people that he has gotten himself involved with. Like, I don't like that guy
Right.
at
Yeah.
all. So like, anytime that he says that y'all are hanging out, and I guess you go over there pretty frequently and watch movies with him
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Nicole. So like, it's always good to hear Chandler,
Yeah.
and then of course. I'm always thankful for to you
I
anytime you help out
appreciate
my
it.
parents
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
because there have been a few times where like I'm talking with my mom or texting with her
Yeah.
like Chandler's coming over, blah blah. I'm like, what? Like that?
Yeah, they're funny. I love talking to your parents. They're
Yeah,
awesome. They're
yeah,
sick. They're like the grandparents I never had. I didn't
yeah.
have that, so I mean, they're cool.
Yeah, their relationship has definitely changed over the
Yeah.
past probably 6 years or
Yeah.
so. That's between them.
Mhm.
But like anytime that like I'm just like, hey mom, if you need a break, just come over
Mhm.
here and hang out.
Yeah.
Teach Elise something, or
Yeah.
if you want to come grab Elise and Dexter and just take a break for a little bit,
Yeah. No, I
you
know. I get
can.
it. Yeah.
So, but
Yeah.
I guess now with more recently, like my mom has been able to get out and
Mhm.
catch some relief because
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
was it Thursday? Yeah, Thursday. I went over there and helped. I put up a shelf or something like that, and she was gone the entire time. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, good for her. Good
Yeah.
for her. So I got
Yeah.
to spend time with my dad, but then also it gives her a chance to
Yeah. Go out and breathe a
breathe a
little.
little bit.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm super grateful for my parents, like
Mhm.
my upbringing. Fred. It's good to hear that other people say positive things about my
Yeah.
parents because I know the sacrifice, just
Oh
like with your
yeah.
parents, that they did for us.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you know, my dad used to be a butcher,
Mhm.
and he
Yeah.
would work in sub
Mhm. Yeah.
temperatures, cutting meat and all that sort of stuff. And he'd always come home with cuts all over his fingers and stuff like that
Yeah.
because it's just part of the job,
Yeah.
right?
That's how it goes.
And so working in the meat department just I know sucked, and then
Mhm.
I know being a realtor has been a huge blessing for him because he got out of the cold.
Yeah.
And but hearing people say nice things about your
Mhm.
parents is always a good thing.
Yeah. Yeah. They're awesome. I love talking to them. They're funny, man.
Very
They're awesome.
opinionated.
Yeah.
Very
I
opinionated.
love. They're not afraid of nobody.
Yeah,
We need more people like that.
it's true.
Honest, I'm serious. Like that's like refreshing. Like it's good to like the older people are cool because they don't hide too much, in my opinion.
I'm waiting to get to that age where I can look you straight in the eyes and be like, Chandler, you blah 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 blah, and
Yeah.
you'll be like, oh, thank you, Mr. Blaine.
Yeah. I'm glad you're being honest with me right now.
Yeah, all those
Yeah.
years. Remember that time we were on the podcast? I lied to your
Yeah.
face, but I have now hit 65, and I can tell you
I
I
can
hate
tell.
your guts.
Yeah. No. Yeah. They're awesome. I mean, my grandparents are cool. It's just that they're separated and they got a bunch of other stuff. They got their own thing going on.
Yeah.
So I mean, and most of my stuff with them was when I was younger. So I don't know what they're doing
Yeah,
now.
I'm
But
very thankful that or all three of my kids have gotten to know their grandparents because, like my oldest or my dad's dad, he passed away when I was like 3,
Oh,
so
wow.
I have like zero memories of the
Yeah.
guy. Like I don't know, about 10 years ago, my grandma gave all of the kids, like not me, but all of her kids, pictures of my grandpa.
Really?
First time I ever saw him.
Wow.
When I saw that picture, I'm not kidding. I was like, "Who is this?"
Yeah.
And my dad was like,
Yeah.
"That's my dad." I'm like, first time I saw him.
Yeah. My dad's dad. He was like he had a crazy story. He's kind of like not a Forrest Gump. That's not the right way to say it, but
I ran.
yeah, I ran. I was running. But he had a really interesting story. Like he grew up through World War II, tried to get in the Navy, almost killed a guy in the Navy. They honorably discharged him to avoid whatever.
Yeah.
And my dad didn't know about it till after he had died. He found the letter. He'd kept it and all his stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, he was kind of like he grew up. So Texas back then, growing up, was like very different. Like gangs were still a problem and all that, and the way things were run was like you had to constables you had to pay,
Yeah.
like you had to keep them out of your stuff, and it was a different world. Like hearing about that, like I found
Can
an old
imagine.
I found an old recording, an old tape of him. He would send tapes back and forth, I guess, to his brother, and yeah. And the first time I ever heard his voice was like 2019.
Wow.
It was really strange, yeah. Because I found an old, I love older technology. I've got like an old Sony radio alarm thing.
Yeah.
Where it has a cassette player and a DVD player on it. And I played it. It was just very bizarre. It was very strange.
DVD's not old tech, bro.
Or sorry,
How dare
CD.
you?
I'm sorry, CD.
CD's not old tech, bro.
It's
that
true.
was in my lifetime.
I know.
I know
Older, yeah. But it was cool. I mean, it was, yeah, it is strange when you have like that kind of thing. It's just weird because it's like there's so many people you don't know about that
Well, you
got
hear these
here.
voices, right, that are connected to you, right?
Yeah.
I haven't ever had the pleasure of finding old voices like
Yeah.
that, like your grandpa. You get to hear their voice and like their thoughts.
Yeah.
Like it's always been something that has perplexed me because when you think about, right, like so I didn't know my grandpa.
Yeah.
I don't even know my great grandpa's like name. I don't know my great great grandpa's last name, but it's
Yeah.
like, but they all had thoughts, dreams,
Yeah.
pursuits.
Yeah.
Like, what were these people like to get
Yeah.
there to hear?
Yeah.
Right. And then for my life, like, where in the spectrum was Christianity introduced into the bloodline for
Yeah.
this, for me to be here at this time? Because, like, my mom grew up in church.
Yeah.
My dad, half of my grandma was Hispanic. So, and I don't think that my grandpa I don't think he believed in anything.
Okay.
So my dad, I think, was raised somewhat Catholic.
Okay.
But it wasn't until I think he was around 19 or 20 before he got saved.
Wow.
And then maybe not 19 because I think by 19 he was married. So
Yeah.
maybe like 16 or 17 he got saved, and then he's Protestant. So like I know that there was some sort of Christianity introduced into my dad and my bloodline's lifetime, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So my mom grew up in church, so it was already in her DNA. She was going to Arlington Baptist University or college, whatever you want to call it now. That's why she was over here, and that's how they met.
Right.
And then, so like, how far does Christianity go back into the
yeah.
bloodline? That's
Yeah, I think about that a lot too because I know. I think on my dad's side, it's always been kind of a deal. On my mom's, I don't really know. I think they've touched it, and stuff like that. And I think they're more serious now than they have been.
yeah,
Just because times are getting weirder, and thank God for it. But I know on my dad's side, I think his family history is like strange. Like it's like, dude, like I think we're old heritage Americans. So like from Anglican England here, dude started here, and then started his life, and along the line like we got involved with like my grandma on my dad's side lived on a reservation. Like she didn't know she didn't know what like electricity was till she was like 17.
wow,
Yeah, and then she ran into my granddad, and they hit it off pretty young at like 17 or something like that. And she got out of that, and like my aunt before she passed, like if I had a picture of her, she was like really dark skinned with like blue eyes. It was very strange. Like you would never
yeah.
think we were related. Really, it's kind of weird. But it's strange.
My brother found a photo of, and maybe one day we can figure out a way to put this on the podcast or whatever. But he found a photo of my grandma's dad.
Yeah.
Because I want to say it was either him or his dad that came across the border illegally into California.
Fence hopper. Yeah.
Right. Came over illegally, and there's this hilarious photo that he had a bunch of kids.
Yeah.
And then the woman that he was marrying had a bunch of kids. So they were merging their families.
Wow.
Who knows what happened
Yeah.
for them to both be divorced. But there's like a ton of kids
That's
in
funny.
between him and his wife.
That's awesome.
And if you remember, well, you know, because you love history.
Yeah.
Do you remember the Zoot Suit wars that were over in California?
Yes.
Dude was wearing a Zoot
That's
suit.
awesome.
The dude
That is
was
so
wearing a
sick.
Zoot suit, and he had what I'm assuming
Yeah.
was a clock in his pocket,
That's
and the
so
chain went all the way up there. But
That's so cool.
As soon as I saw the Zoot suit, I was like, dude, Grandpa was a Zoot suit guy. But you know, that was
Yeah.
what they wore during the time.
That's awesome.
But there's this hilarious photo of it looked like 7, 8, 9, maybe more kids, and
Yeah.
husband and wife were standing on
Either
not next
side.
to them,
Oh,
not next to each
way
other,
out.
but they were
Yeah.
separated
That's
by
awesome.
these kids, and yeah, it made me
Yeah.
laugh really hard. But
That's
like,
really cool.
but from that era, like when you look at just our families,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like how far, but does Christianity go back into our blood? But then where we are at right now,
Mm-hmm.
like in the society that we're in, it's probably the same back then. Like stepping a hair off course
Mm-hmm.
could absolutely start a domino effect of the bloodline going to hell.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
that's one thing that I've been, at least I think I have tried my best to be
Yeah.
who I am at church, who I am here, who I am on the podcast, because like hypocrisy is a huge problem within
Right.
the church, right?
Yeah.
You grew up in the church, I grew up in the church, so we've seen a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
So like staying consistent, right? Not perfect, but consistent. I think has been my goal. So that way, when I stand before God at the end of all things, or great white throne, however you look
Yeah.
at your eschatology, like I did my best, right? I'm not perfect. I'm only
Right,
going to be
yeah.
standing in front of God because of what
Exactly.
Jesus did. But like whenever I stand there, like I'm hoping that all of my kids will be there
Yeah.
with me, and then if Jesus doesn't come back or whatever, if they have kids, that all of their kids are there, that all
Right.
their kids are there. However long the bloodline goes, that it keeps
Yeah.
spiraling out, and that
Yeah.
I wasn't the person that was like, yeah, I caused the next 10 generations
Right.
to go to hell
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
I
Yeah.
would rather play on my phone than be a dad, you know?
Right. Yeah. I think that's important too. Like it, we want to kind of push a lot of the issues of the world to like this externality, but I mean, it's always going to be on us to some extent. You know?
Yeah.
Everyone to some extent ushers in a lot of their own like pain, I guess. You know, in some
Well,
way.
one of the things that, and again, you don't know some of the stuff that I've experienced within the church, and
Right, I
same,
get you.
same.
Yeah.
So like they do. So I think that hopefully, as they become adults,
Yeah.
that when inevitably hurt does come, they don't look at the church, they don't look
Yeah.
at the pastor, they don't look at all the circumstances around the problem,
Yeah.
because we're a bunch of fallen people that have fallen problems. Because some of the stuff that just Christy and I have gone through, getting to where we're at, sitting right here inside the church, most people would have left.
Yeah.
Right, just left, but like it's not about that guy
That's
that
true.
lost his mind on the pulpit. It's not
Yeah.
about the usher that sat in my chair. It's not about the songs that,
Yeah.
that the church is singing that I don't like. It's all about who Jesus is, what he did on the cross for me.
Yeah.
And I hope and I pray that I always keep that thought process in my brain that
Yeah.
even if my current pastor comes up and just punches me right in the face and tells
Right.
me to leave the building forever, that
Yeah.
like, okay, that sucked, but let's go find another church and get back involved the way that we're supposed to.
Yeah, I think too. Like even so, like there's a big movement now. This goes to what you're talking to. I promise.
It does not.
Yeah, but there's like a big movement now where Christianity has merged with self improvement.
Yeah,
Which is-
deconstruction.
Yeah, which is fine to an extent, but what happens is you have like a lot of very, I don't want to say despondent. I don't know, like weaker people, you know, they're kind of down on their luck, I guess, you know. And so they see Christianity as like this out, kind of like this exit to the suffering or something that they're going through currently. And that's
Yeah.
not really the case. It is kind of like you're given the tools to brave the external world with this like almost kind of like cosmological story that you're involved in, you know. And I think that's what people really need to look towards. Like you were saying, like it's not about people's actions towards you. That like if you look at it, it's just like this thing that's really far beyond, but personal, still personal to you, right? God's a personal God.
Right.
If you look at it as like a mission, I think like I have to fulfill this thing no matter what, like no matter what ailment, whatever relationship problem I have, you know, I have to keep doing this because it's what I ought to do, you know, for everyone else around me, even, you know, like because that can inspire somebody to continue as you're continuing,
Yeah.
like you said, and I think like people kind of need to all the material stuff that might come with it is that's like a bonus. It's a thing that could happen that might most likely will, but it's not the main it's not the main
Yeah.
like reason to do it. And I think that's like important. And I'm glad like people are finding like social media has allowed for like a lot of this stuff. Like you know like a lot of lifting people like people
Hmm.
who do weights and stuff. Like a lot of those people moved into Christianity. You know as a platform to kind of push the gym stuff, you know, and everything.
Yeah.
But like wires get crossed with people, so they're like, well, if I'm Christian, I need to necessarily be this thing or whatever. Which maybe you should be as strong as you can. I think that's definitely something you should do.
Well, then I need to start.
Yeah.
I need to get after it, bro.
But I think
I'm
it's
in
something.
trouble.
Yeah, I think it's something we should all attempt. And I'm not what I'm supposed to be, but um, that is like it's not like you. I don't know. You gotta. Everybody's got to grab the mission before they go on to like all the stuff that can come with it.
Yeah.
'Cause, yeah.
I think I think what you're trying to say, and stop me if I'm saying this incorrectly, but like the people that are trying to use Christianity as a crutch
Yeah.
isn't going to find what they're looking
Yeah,
for.
is it gonna find with them? Yeah.
Because the best way to describe Christianity for me outside of the actual gospel is it's not a work based
Yeah.
religion. Works are a byproduct of a true understanding of what Jesus did on the cross. Because like if you truly believe
Yeah.
that Christianity is true,
Yeah.
then why aren't you compelled to tell
Exactly.
other people? It's not our job to
Yeah.
win an argument, even
That's
though there
true.
are apologists out there that do a phenomenal job. It's not my job to convince you. It's my job to say, hey,
Yeah.
you know that
Good news.
the orange man sucks. You know
Yeah.
that guy sucks. You know all this sucks. Guess what? There's a reason why all
Yeah.
these people suck. It's
Yeah.
because of sin, and you lay it out for them, all that sort of stuff. So like, because you've seen the show, Fire Resistant.
Yeah.
So like, we go on there. We have given the gospel, praise God, so many times, and then someone's like, "Well, I don't believe it." Okay, fine.
Yeah.
It's not my job to say,
Yeah. I can only show you the way. I can't
right,
make you walk the
right.
path. Yeah.
So that's my whole thought process on it. Is if you are trying to use Christianity
I got
as
you.
a crutch, or if you're saying like, because the last time I spoke to the men at the church, because I lead the Bible study at the church for the men, is I asked them,
Yeah.
when you stand before God and God looks you in the face, whatever that face looks like, right? And says, why should I let you in? Even though that's not in the Bible, it's just a
Right.
story that I'm putting. Why should I let you in?
Yeah.
What have you done to get in?
Yeah.
The answer is there's nothing I can do. It was all done by Jesus on the cross. So it doesn't matter how many homeless people we fed. It doesn't
Right.
matter all this stuff. It's about the fact that we're displaying the love of God, because one of the things that I stole from somebody, I don't know who I stole it from, but this right here, Earth sucks.
Yeah.
This is the best that a lost person is going to have it.
Right. Yeah.
This earth that sucks is the worst
Yeah.
thing that a Christian will ever have to go through. So if this is the worst thing that we have to go through, it's not bad.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the flip side of that, a lost person, this is the best that they will ever have it.
Yeah.
And that sucks.
Yeah. That does suck. Yeah. That's
That
bad.
does suck.
Yeah, it's the rich young ruler, like that, like those. Well, not every rich person, but I'm just saying, like generally, those who are clinging to the material world and gaining a lot from it, it's going to be a lot harder. Because I mean,
Yeah.
this is like your heaven. I mean, that's it. Like,
Yeah.
you didn't, and also too, you negate like your own struggles. Like if you're just constantly insulated, like is that really a life?
Right.
Did you really have one? I mean, like it's always funny because like if you look at like nobility, it seems silly when they're like talking about like going to war or something because you're like, why? You're in a palace. Why would you ever?
Right.
Well, the reason is because like they knew kind of inherently that like if I don't be a man or I don't, if I don't do the things that to some extent that other people are doing, to kind of dive into like a commonality with people.
Yeah.
Then what use am I to even rule somebody if I don't even know what life is? Like, what would I even, like it sounds crazy. Like if you ever read like it was like a Roman von, like Vernenberg or something like that. He was like this crazy guy. I don't think he was particularly Christian, but he had this crazy thing where he was obsessed with like being the next Kublai Khan during World War One.
Yeah.
He was like this obsessed guy, and he was rich. He was like came from this like royal family, and then like the communist revolution happened, and then he became like this insane warrior that will never be forgotten. Like he will always be the way he is. But like if he would have stayed on the track of just being like I'm gonna be a rich kid, I'm just gonna do rich kid stuff, he would have never that kind of person would never have existed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I wish his life would have turned out better. But I mean, in a way,
Hopefully he knew Jesus.
hopefully, yeah, he did. He when he was younger, he was closer. He was a Christian, but later in life, he got really rough. But the yeah, you want. Yeah, I mean, I think like if you are like clinging on to the material world, I think that's kind of gotta stop.
Yeah,
like, that's gotta quit. I've gotten that way. Like I'll like if something breaks, I'm not trying to be wasteful, but if something's like not worth my time, get rid of it. Like,
Yeah.
who cares? I'm not taking it with me. It doesn't matter.
So, what about my Funko Pops?
You gotta get rid of them. I don't know what to tell you.
How
You
dare
gotta
you?
sell them off.
I've actually thought about moving that over here because that will justify their existence
Yeah.
even more.
Yeah,
having
yeah.
all my
At least
Funko.
you'd be in the forefront.
But
yeah.
the problem is this photo right here is so stinking awesome. Christy bought it for me for
Yeah, it
I
looks
think
good.
Father's Day of last year. But you never know.
Yeah,
we
yeah,
may
I
move that
gotcha.
over there or
Yeah, maybe.
figure it out at some point because
Yeah.
then people will be like, "What in the world is he doing over there?"
Yeah, no, I mean, you can have your interests. Like I love guns. Like it's like my vice.
Is it?
Oh yeah, guns are so cool.
Nice.
They're so neat. I bought a shotgun recently.
Have you? So.
Yeah. It's a Mossberg pistol grip. It looks like something. It's like the same kind of shotgun that was like in one of the Terminator movies.
Yeah, the Sarah Connor famous scene where
Yeah,
she's like, pow,
yeah,
pow, yeah.
It's that one.
Yeah.
I got it. I saw it. I was like, I want that one. Right
Well,
there.
we're going to have you come on here again and talk about movies because I feel like you
love
being connected to Brett and all that sort of stuff, you'll have different takes, of course,
Yeah.
than him and all that. But I do. Before we wrap this up, I do
Yeah.
have one question for you because it just popped in my brain
Let's see what it is.
because it involves a movie. I don't know if Brett's ever ranted and raved at you
Yeah.
about this movie because of my feelings about it. But and again, y'all are closer in age, so he probably already knows what's coming. So I'm delaying as much as I
Yeah.
possibly can. What are your thoughts on the movie Baby Driver?
Which answer gets me on the podcast again?
I'm
just kidding.
No,
I'm
your
kidding.
opinion's your opinion, bro.
I'm kidding.
I don't care.
I know. No, I like Baby Driver. It's
you?
good. Yeah, it's good. I think it's. I mean, it does fit like the. How do I say it? Like, you ever seen what's it called? It had like Ryan Gosling in it. Where he's a
Driver.
Yeah, Driver.
It's actually just called Driver.
Driver. Driver is more my speed. Like it's like really.
It's slow
Yeah,
burn.
it's slow burn,
Yeah.
and it hits really hard when it needs to.
Right.
Baby Driver is still good, but I think it fits like a more, like a kind of like a hipstery take on action a little bit, which is good. I think that's good too. But I think like there are movies that do hit harder than Baby Driver. Baby Driver is good. Like the driving stuff is, I think it's really cool. I
Yeah.
wish there was more of that in films. I wish there was more like, you ever watch like '70s movies where they're just like
Yes.
blowing cars through houses? I
Yeah.
wish that was. I wish that was
Have you
still a
ever
thing.
seen the original Gone in 60 Seconds? It's like a
Yes,
45-minute
it's
car
amazing.
chasing. Yeah.
I love it.
But okay, but I had to ask about Baby Driver because I
Hmm.
feel like when Brett sits down there, like
Yeah.
whenever I like introduce him into the
Hmm.
show, I'll be like, "All right, first question: Why is Baby Driver the worst movie ever
Yeah.
to created
Yeah. Yeah.
just to throw him off?" Because like I don't know what it is about that movie, but like
Yeah.
that was a general
Yeah.
like hitting
Hmm.
of butting heads because he
Yeah.
loves that movie so much, and
Hmm.
for me personally, like I don't know if you know, but like I am like growing up before Brett came about, I really wanted to be a writer director.
Yeah.
So I've written quite a few screenplays and stuff like that. Doesn't make me any sort of professional or anything
I
like
get you.
that,
Yeah.
but I get an idea of way stories should go and how
Hmm.
characters should act. And Kevin Spacey's character is the thing that made that movie so awful
Hmm.
for me because he was this ruthless character,
Yeah.
and then he just gives his life up to for what? Because two
Yeah.
kids love each other.
Yeah.
Like he would have murdered the crap out of them
Hmm.
and then gone back and started making money through heist again.
Right.
Why would he have sacrificed himself
No, I
to
get it.
save? To me, I thought that ruined
Yeah.
the entire movie for me.
Hmm.
Like the movie was fine,
No.
and then this moment happens. I was like, what in the ever living crap, right?
Yeah.
Other than like they just wanted to have some sort of
Hmm.
happy ending, but yeah, so ever since then, it's funny because like I'll bring it up every so often. But
Yeah, that's
I
so
also
true.
thought about it just now. Okay, I do have another quick question, then we'll wrap this up.
Okay.
Have you seen the movie Con Air?
Yes.
Have you seen the movie Face Off?
Yes.
Which movie's better?
That's a good question. I want to say Con Air because it's so insane.
Okay.
It's such a crazy film. Like conceptually,
Hmm.
it's insane. Face Off. I like Face Off because like Nick Cage's performance in that is like the first 5 minutes is him grabbing that girl.
Well, that's like
It's
a
so
30.
funny.
That's like a 30-second scene.
Yeah,
That's not the
I
entire
know.
opening of the movie.
Yeah, but it's so. There's something about those movies that like they're so like thematically tied
Hmm.
together. It's hard for me to choose, but I would say Con Air because it's just like the dialogue in that movie is so funny.
Yeah.
Like it was it. It's like what's his name? Um,
Was it?
Oh, he's like the main bad guy, kind
Oh,
of.
John Malkovich.
John Malkovich.
Yeah.
He like says something so weird to all these criminals. It's so like Victorian,
Mm.
and then like all these like hardcore gangsters are like, "Yeah, we're deplorables," like something like. I'm just like, that's not. That's such a crazy thing to think. Like having like a Mike Tyson type dude being like, "I'm with that. Yeah, that's awesome."
So
It's such a crazy thing.
that question just popped into my brain, and the reason why I think I'm going to start doing this going forward.
Hmm.
So a friend of mine and I, this goes all the way back to high school, and then I promise we'll wrap this up.
Oh, that's fine.
It's been 2 hours.
I got you.
This goes all the way back to high school, and I don't even know how I got started.
Yeah, yeah.
So Jeff and I were working at Albertsons, and we got on the conversation
Mm-hmm.
of Face Off and Con Air. He took the side of Con Air, and I
Mm-hmm.
took the side of Face Off, right? As far as whichever movie was better.
Yeah.
So we just been argue all the
Yeah.
way. Dude, we're still friends now.
That's so funny.
And about 4 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
he goes to this thing called Dragon Con, which is a massive convention over in Georgia. He goes there every
Yeah.
year, happens at the same time every year.
Mhm.
And he goes there, he invites me, I go.
Yeah.
Phenomenal time. First night there's a guy that is dressed up as Castor Troy
That's funny.
from Face Off. And
That's
I was
awesome.
I was like, this is a sign. This shows you
Yeah.
that there is this
Yeah.
dude, it's been 20 years since the movie come out.
That's
I don't
true,
see
yeah.
anybody.
That's
Well,
true.
It's probably been longer, but
I will say, Face Off is like more, like
it's
yeah,
more memey.
it's more yeah, like it's way. I don't know why. It's probably because like Con Air is like in one place for a long time. Maybe that like since there's more movement and Face Off, maybe it feels a
so
little
the
more.
story still continues.
Yeah, yeah,
See this guy, I'm like, hey, look, that's Castor Troy.
yeah.
That's it.
That's true.
Same night,
Mhm.
this guy had made. Have you seen Batman Forever?
Yes.
So the Two-Face
Mhm.
in Batman Forever.
Yeah.
Somebody crossed Face Off with Two-Face.
That's funny.
This guy was dressed up. He had Castor Troy's face
Yeah.
on this side, and he had Sean Archer's face on the other.
That's pretty cool.
And I saw it, and I was like, "That's a weird looking
Yeah.
Two-Face." And then when he turned around, I saw the two brass
two-
guns,
yeah.
and I was like, "Hey, man, yeah." I was like, "Is that like Two-Face, like Face Off?" And he's like, "You're the first person to notice that."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Jeff."
Yeah.
And then later on, like day number 2, I go into this this panel, and there's this guy in a purple shirt, button up, sunglasses, sitting down. I walk into the room, and then when he gets up. He's got
The
two
guns,
brass, different guys. There were 3 people
Everyone's
that cosplayed as
Yeah.
Castor Troy
Yeah.
the one year that I go, and that
Yeah.
had been like the final nail in the
That's really
coffin
good.
for that
You know,
argument between
one of the
both
one
us.
shots we did for D&D, I played as Nicolas Cage. Yeah.
Which Nicolas Cage?
I just Nicolas Cage, like the actor,
Yeah.
like just an insane actor. Did you ever see he has a plot where he's going to be buried? Did you ever see what it looked like? It's wild. It's a big pyramid.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's a big pyramid.
That's wild.
Yeah, he has a big white pyramid he's going to be buried in.
So
Sepulchre.
then, if I can remember going forward, you are the first person to answer, and you put a check mark on Con Air.
Con
So we'll
Air.
try to keep a running tally going forward. What
true.
movie
We'll
is better,
see. Yeah.
just to make it part of this whole
Oh, yeah.
Aaron-esque America. So like the whole plan is to interview people and then get people that I don't know and try to go from state to
Yeah.
state to state and interview
Yeah.
people. And
You know someone you might like on YouTube? There's a guy called, he has a pretty small audience. He's called Based Lit Analyzer. And
I don't know if I like that.
I don't know, it's funny, but like it's like a joke.
Yeah.
And but he is a guy from Virginia, and he is like legit. Like he took acting, like was going to be like a big actor and everything, stopped because of the industry. Now, and he's also like a guy, I think he teaches like literature and stuff like that, like Western literature. Like he's like well educated, and he's kind of funny, but he does reviews, like thematic reviews on books and movies, and some of the stuff in there you might like.
Yeah, I'll have to
Should
look
check
them up.
him out. Yeah, everyone should check out. Not to plug anybody on your own
How
podcast.
dare you?
Everybody should check that guy out. I don't know. It's if you like movies and stuff, of course, always come to Aaron first for the movie reviews. Then go to him.
That's what I'm talking about.
Go to Bezlet after that. Yeah.
Well, with that being said, since you've watched a few episodes, then you know at the very end I give you the floor to give whatever as far as like, hey, here's some life lessons or something that I've learned through your 24, almost 25 years of life experience. Like if somebody's watching this and if they're struggling or maybe not struggling, or if you just have like an overview of just like knowledge that you've gained that you think can help somebody.
Wow. Never. Oh wow, this is gonna be something. I mean, we pretty much encapsulated most of it. I mean, it's never rock bottom. There's no such thing. Keep moving forward. Don't give up. That's about it. And we will win at the end. So I think that's gonna be no matter what happens, Christ got you. Don't matter. You'll be all right.
I love it.
Yeah.
Chandler, that 2 hours went by fast.
No, I thought it was like maybe an hour. I don't know. It was a lot.
That went by super
I'm sorry.
fast.
I'm sorry. We went on some weird rabbit holes. I didn't
No,
mean to.
that's part of the conversation.
Okay,
'Cause
cool.
we,
All right.
the important thing is we found our course correction.
True.
And we got
True,
ourselves,
we got ourselves back on track.
We stayed off
Sorry about-
anything
yeah.
political. We stayed off not so much religion because we agree
Yeah.
on that, but we stayed away from potential divisive
Yeah,
things,
yeah.
which is great.
Yeah.
Even though I think we kind of agree.
We agree.
Yeah.
I just don't want people to get bogged down with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That,
They hear all this crap all the time.
Yeah, but ultimately, I appreciate you
Yeah.
coming on here. I appreciate you reaching out to me.
Yeah.
And then, if you ever want to come back.
Oh, definitely.
and
Maybe
then-
at some point.
yeah.
Today, the Aaron Asks America. Tomorrow, Joe Rogan. I'm going to fight Joe Rogan in the octagon.
What?
No, I'm not.
You know that
It'd be
some
funny
guy,
if I did.
some guy just got put in jail.
What?
Do you not hear about that?
Who?
There's a guy, I've never heard of him until
Okay.
this moment, that he's called the Liver King. He's a
This
multi-millionaire guy.
Yeah.
And he threatened Joe Rogan. Now he's in jail. Some multi-millionaire
That's
guy was like, I'm
funny.
going to kill Joe Rogan.
I didn't know that. My bad. Don't put me in jail. I was kidding. That was a joke.
Joe
I didn't
Rogan
know that.
looks at you and he's like,
I know about Liver King. Yeah, that guy's insane. Yeah, he needs to calm down.
all right, well, Again, I appreciate it. I can't wait to have you back on. And
Yes,
then I'm
sir.
going to have your hetero life mate on here probably Tuesday or something
Yeah.
like that.
Brett's a bit. You got the shoes to fill. This is probably the best episode ever. Maybe you never know.
Ever.
Ever. So
At
you
least in
gotta
your
you
age
gotta
bracket.
top
At
it.
least in your age
At
bracket.
least my age bracket. That's
At least in
true.
your age
Fred's gonna have a
bracket.
way cooler story. I know he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we didn't even get in everything. That's going to
No.
be another podcast
Yeah.
if he wants to do it. But with that being said, this has been Aaron Ask America. Thanks for watching. Please like, subscribe, tell all your friends about it. But thanks for watching.
Aaron Ask America, we're talking real life. Truth, love, and struggle, no filters, no hype. From the heart of the people to the soul of the land, he's asking the questions you'll understand. Aaron Ask America.